All right. There we go.
What's up, y'all? You know what time it is? It's about to be that time.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Theory for Theory. We are rejoined by returning guest, the Hidden Island. Yes. And today we are going to discuss a number of things, including Hidden Islands.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Randy. A couple things I want to say. First off, I'm very glad to be back. It's been a minute since I've been on Theory for Theory. These are one of like the best One Piece collab stream series on YouTube, pretty much. Like, I've seen so many crazy theories get dropped on here, so I'm just happy to be a part of it this time because I got some fire today. People that were in my last like big chapter explanation stream, maybe some of this will be familiar, but I'm definitely excited to talk about this. And number two, I just want to personally congratulate you, Randy. I didn't get the chance to do it before stream. Congratulations in being on the season 2 writing room for the One Piece live action, dude. If there's anyone out there that deserves it, it's you. Absolutely. I remember when the show was like coming out and people were talking about it, everyone was, kind of a little bit apprehensive about it, but you were like the only one who was like steadfast, like, no, this is going to be good. Let me show you why. Let me show you what they're doing. And I think that goes a long way. And I feel very confident that going forward, the show is going to get even better, especially with a season like, bro, Alabasta, Crocodile, and Vivi, and you're behind the helm on that, man. Come on. It's a layup. So, yeah, I'm very excited for you. I'm very happy for you. And I think, you're going to do great. So, yeah.
It's a full effort. I wouldn't use the word behind the helm. There's many people behind it, but
of course,
still, as a writer, I'm not on strike anymore, but Hollywood is still on strike. So I will refrain from discussing it further until all strikes are resolved. But
gotcha.
Very, very excited, very honored, very blessed. And I mean, look, it's just great when your professional life meets your passions, it's just
yeah, man.
But it's a lot of fun. When I can talk about things, it'll be really exciting.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that when that happens.
Yeah. So now I remember the first time we did a Theory for Theory, you had the Goma Goma no Cardigan.
Yeah.
Now this Zoro Arlong Park?
Correct. Yes, I have the sequel for this one, the next cardigan. I'm gonna make sure I have a new One Piece cardigan for every one of these. So yeah, okay. We got Zoro this time. Yeah. Sanji's next.
Well, I'm wearing this spiritually because I felt underdressed the last time we were collabing. I was just in a t-shirt. I was like, okay, he brought out the swirls last time. Let me bring out the swirls.
Could I see the full fit? That actually looks great. I didn't get a chance to say. Can I see the? Let me see the. Yeah.
Let's do the little fashion show beautiful. Here. Okay.
Let's go. Oh! You got the. Yep. They got all the characters on there. I love that. Oh! What's on the back there? Hold on. Oh, that's fire. Okay. I love that. That's actually sick. Very nice. Okay, we're fitted appropriately for this stream. I can confidently say. I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it's funny because I don't even remember last time. I think you busted out the straw hat, but you had the black shirt on for that one. I had the gum cardigan. I had my professor look going on with the glasses, but now.
Yeah, well, I was going for an 80s aesthetic to match your vibe, so yes. I think I had one of my Terminator shirts on.
I remember. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And then I was, like, I should have brought out something One Piece. Okay, all right, okay.
I see Miles said drip for drip.
That's, yeah, sorry, you guys. Yeah, I thought this was gonna be Theory for Theory, but this is This is the first drip for drip stream.
happy to bring that forward for you guys. Sometimes drip is as important as theories, I gotta say, especially in Egghead. We got a lot of characters with some drip. We got a lot of theories flying around this arc.
We also have some characters with no drip.
No drip, yep. It's a very important distinction. I think the hype levels per arc are determined partially by the drip. Wano wouldn't have been as hype without the coat on Luffy's shoulders half the time, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm. The chat knows I'm still salty about whatever Sanji's wearing. That is in Egghead. That is just it's not it. It's not it. Yeah. Hawaiian shirt with a hood on, shorts. No.
To his credit, okay, Sanji's in a suit for half the story, or like 3/4 of the story. I think he's earned enough drip for a while, you know. Like he's kind of got the credit up there, so he can afford a couple misses, you know.
You know, there's swatches. Okay, so I mean, like we had the wine suit drip in my favorite. I mean, that was great. That was great. I mean, I still love pinstripe Sanji from Water 7 Sea Train and all that, but. I mean, when are we going to get a blue suit? When are we going to get a green suit? Come on, let's change the colors up. It doesn't always have to be black suit.
Green. You know he won't do green. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that.
Right, what am I saying? Shout out to Barry Motivated, who said the drip is unquestionably certified. And high hidden.
Hello.
Certified drip.
What's up to everyone? I see a bunch of people in the chat that I recognize. So what's up, guys?
Dripper Scarfino would be proud. Yeah, drop those strippers in the chat. That's still an emoji, right? And yeah, man. So this is it's been a while since the last time we did a one-on-one, and at least on this channel, we did one on your channel when you did your one-man reverie. That was a lot of fun, and we've also met in person, which I don't think we had done yet by the time we did the first theory.
Yeah, you're responsible for convincing me to get that wooden Roger that I have on the shelf there. That's been there on display ever since.
Well, I remember. I mean, I've got my Luffy right here, so.
Yep.
I still, I have to reach out to that guy because I commissioned a crocodile when we were there last year, because Crocodile's Bounty had just come out. Yeah. And he hadn't made them yet, and he was thinking about it. I was just like, "You gonna do Crocodile?" He's like, "Yeah, maybe." And then I started talking with him. I was like, "Can you do the Cross Guild Bounty poster? Like the Cross Guild, just the poster for the Cross Guild." And he was like, "It wouldn't be the same size as the other ones because with all of the amount, the 3 people in the wood, like it would be way bigger." And I was like, I don't know if that's gonna fit or that's gonna do it. But I have to reach back out to him because I basically said I want to wait for the official colors to come out to understand what the scheme is, even though it's wood and it's limited. But
it would be so cool though. I mean that
we're getting close though. Is that the next episode?
With the next handful, I feel like that we're almost there. We're almost there. What just happened in the anime? Was it Aramaki showed up?
I think the next episode is supposed to be seeing the 4 Emperors posters. So that's not so we're not at 1058, 1056. That was Cross Guild. Yeah.
We got a little bit.
So, but yeah, man. Chat, drop some W's in the chat because of just the growth that the Hidden Island has had for his channel as well. Since the last time we collabed and everything, like you're killing it, man. I was just looking at your last videos. They're all in the hundreds of thousands of views. You are doing it at the highest level. I remember I remember Mord showed up at the, you were talking about how you'd auditioned yourself for Mord's panel thing, and then he just appeared, like you said Beetlejuice 3 times, and then he was just like, he, essentially not these words. He was like, "You're welcome. I didn't choose you. Now you've become a YouTuber." And
he was like, "My editor's better." That was funny. That was great.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. No, thank you, man. I've definitely been like working hard to get to this point where like the videos are actually like reaching people and getting out there now. Because I put a lot of my videos are very long. Like they're very long. drawn out videos. Not for everyone in that respect, but you know, for me, that's like always the type of video I enjoyed when it comes to One Piece, these deep dives. And obviously they take a lot of work. So
yes, they do.
And as you know, I mean, you recently put out that Joy Boy theory. That was a lengthy one too. And it's like those videos, you want them to reach as many people as possible because you put a lot of work in. So I'm really happy to see that kind of, you know, paying off now. Now, it's funny because I've seen people talk about my theories in context outside of my comment section and stuff. So it's like cool to just see that you know, those ideas now are floating around. Some ideas are becoming like more accepted when, you know, for example, the Mihawk Shanks video I had where like Mihawk used to be a part of the Red Hair Pirates, like that video is now getting a lot more traction than I thought. I think that's the biggest video on my channel now, and I've seen that theory get floated around now. It's like really cool because when I put it up originally, I remember people just roasting me like endlessly, like this is not gonna happen, not possible, Mihawk would never answer to Shanks. And now people are like, actually, I don't know, maybe that's not such a crazy idea. So it's like, it's just cool. It's just cool to see the discourse kind of like,
he'd never answer to Shanks, but here he is answering to Buggy.
That's the thing, right? It's like crazy. It's like now we got Buggy doing it. I don't know, you know. Yeah. Maybe we got to give some credit to Shanks. But yeah, man, thank you for that. And I got to also thank you for also giving me that opportunity to even grow this much, because when you did your Theory for Theory stream with me the first time, I don't think I had done a collab up until that point. So you definitely put me out there to a lot of people. And then by extension, further into the Reverie that you hosted, you did the same thing. You opened the door to me and you brought me on there. And I would say that helped me a lot, man, because I got a lot of growth after that. So thank you. And that was definitely, you know, due in part to you and everyone else in the community who's been so supportive of me. So I really appreciate that.
Amen. Yeah. I love seeing everybody win.
Hell yeah, man. For sure. Same here.
Shout out to Killer Comedy TV, member for 4 months, said W collab like D stream. So
yes.
Yeah, so let's get into some topics here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. You know, I almost want to dive into this like Mihawk Shanks thing a little bit. I did talk about it a bit with I had Joy Boy Theories on for the last Theory for Theory, and he is a subscriber to the idea that Mihawk was a part of Shanks' crew now too, and has been putting videos out. So we talked about it for a bit, but I find the idea interesting, you know, if it is truly from the idea that Mihawk was looking for somebody that was just as ambitious, if not more ambitious than himself, and didn't find that in Shanks. Like at some point Shanks was just like, no, I'm not going after the One Piece. Whether that's because we have to wait for a specific time or certain pieces have to fall in line. Either way, it feels like Shanks has some sort of thing that he's working on with Rayleigh, you know, because you have that flashback during Sabati where Rayleigh and Shanks are having a conversation, and they're, you know, that's the first time we hear like, oh, Luffy said the same things that Roger did. And if now the humor and the, you know, the fun part of it is that here we just had Buggy, you know, like shout that he wants to find the One Piece and become the Pirate King.
Right.
Is that going to shape how Crocodile and Mihawk look at him after this moment? Especially considering that we know that Crocodile is a failed pursuer of the One Piece.
Yeah.
Was Mihawk as well.
That's been on my mind too, and I feel like especially after we haven't seen the update on like after Buggy gave that speech. We haven't seen what's happened since then within the crew dynamic. You know, if they've maybe gained some more respect for Buggy, maybe we get some more insight into, because we know obviously, like you said, Crocodile wanted the One Piece himself, he failed, but Mihawk, it's not entirely clear if that was ever his goal at any point, if he always wanted to be the world's strongest. I wouldn't be totally surprised if he became the world's strongest by consequence of just being a really, really good swordsman. He just didn't find anyone to give him a challenge up until that point, with the exception of, in this case, I believe Shanks. And I think what would have been the really, like, what makes the parallel cool to me is the time skip where Zoro goes to Mihawk he kind of lays out his dreams bare for him and says, I'm willing to give this up if you can train me because I want to support my captain. And Mihawk is kind of like taken aback by this because he's like, oh, you found someone whose ambition is worth more than your own. And it made him do this like 180 shift on his mentality on Zoro almost instantaneously. He went from basically saying, you're not worth it, I misjudged you, to all of a sudden being like, you're special, because not only do you have such a strong dream, as we saw at Baratier, you're willing to lay down your life, you're willing to take a slash across the chest to be the world's strongest, to fight against me, but now you're willing to give that all up for your captain. And it's like, if Mihawk was in that same exact position at one point where he was like, okay, I want to be the world's strongest swordsman, but my own captain is the one that stands in the way of me having that title. He's also a really powerful swordsman, and the only way for me to achieve my dream is to actually fight against someone in my own crew. That might have made him leave the crew. He wasn't able to put his ambition aside for his captain's ambition, or whatever that may have been, whatever Shanks truly wanted. He couldn't have put that aside. For him, it was like, no, my dream above all else. So to see Zoro, someone that parallels him in that way, to do the opposite must have had an effect on him. That's the way I see it. You know, I think that he was placed in a similar situation, where his dream conflicted with Shanks's, and that might have made them split. I've always also just felt that the Ben Beckman first mate thing, I mean, it makes sense, but I always felt like Ben had more in common with Sanji thematically than with characters like Zoro or King or other first mates that come to mind. Obviously now we picture him as this really strong guy. He's probably the closest person on the crew to Shanks, but like, he's a guy, he smokes, he's a womanizer, he fights with guns. Sanji, at least in concept, in the concept phase, was a gunslinger as well, I'm pretty sure.
And he randomly pulled out a gun against Nico Robin for whatever reason in one panel and never did it again.
Yeah, I guess he forgot, I'm not supposed to use my hands, wait.
It's just like, bro, have you been packing this whole time? Was that just on you in Whiskey Peak?
Yep. And it's like, it's funny to think about too, because like a lot of the I don't know, there's like something about the first mate dynamic that's just, it comes off as a little bit different with Ben Beckman to me. I don't know. There's just like a lot of running themes. Like all the first mates tend to be swordsmen. They tend to have some sort of proclivity to drinking alcohol. Like Mihawk drinks wine all the time. Like he's just sitting there. He's a wino. He's drinking wine all day. You have Zoro, glug glug. You have Rayleigh in the boat drinking all day. It just feels like there's some things that kind of carry over, and it would be hard for me to imagine, as strong as Mihawk is now, it'd be hard for me to imagine that when he was in his youth, he was strong enough to go solo across the Grand Line. Maybe now, as the world's strongest, he can roll around on a ship by himself. That's good. That makes sense. But when he was in his youth, I don't know about that.
See, that's all interesting. I really like the Ben Beckman aspect of it and relating it more to Sanji, but the interesting thing to me about Ben Beckman is the age difference between the two of them, which is about 11 or 12 years. And it almost signals to me that, especially when you look at a chapter like when Shanks announced, like, hey, Ben, let's finally do it. Let's go for it. It's like, what does Ben know? Did Ben come to the red-haired pirates because he already had something? Was he a member of some other organization, a part of a different family? I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about God Valley today. But,
yes.
During the incident, he's 12 years old. And he's not from the West Blue, but it's like, could he, it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if he was there and then he was able to connect with Shanks by being like a person that could actually tell him about what happened there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then I can kind of, I always want to find the connections between characters, and so their age difference is interesting to me, and I'd love to like get into how that came about, especially considering that we know that Yasop was actually the first person that Shanks got.
Right.
So Ben came later, but then became the first mate. So it's like, how did that all come about?
Well, I feel like when there's like a crew being formed in One Piece, it seems like there's always some sort of, I guess, motivation for everyone that wants to join. That there's usually some big overarching motivation that the captain represents in some way that connects to each of the members that end up deciding, hey, I want to follow this guy. So obviously with Luffy, it's like, you know, he's like this liberating character. So all of his crewmates, he ends up freeing them from some bad circumstance and says, let's go have an adventure. Let's go find the One Piece. Obviously, he's the protagonist. Very, very straightforward and simple. But for characters like Shanks, I don't know if the first time he saw Yasop or Ben, he was like, hey guys, join me. Let's go find the One Piece. I think there may have been maybe a different goal in the background there, because it's clear based on his conversation with Buggy, his goal wasn't to go right after the One Piece. It's clear from how he interacted with Luffy, how he waited for him all these years to start. You know, what was their goal prior to meeting Luffy? What was their goal after? You know, what did Shanks say to the crew? Hey guys, we're just gonna wait for Luffy to catch up all these years. I feel like maybe they already had a goal that maybe waiting for Luffy already fell in line with from the beginning. They were like, okay, this is just the next part of the plan, not some course correction. It's like, oh, Luffy ate the fruit, let's change what our plan is. I don't know. I think
Roger and the rest of them were too early. So
Yeah.
it implies that there is something that they've been waiting for. That
Right.
there is maybe even something that is bigger than Luffy in particular, but still, like, there is a prophesized time. And, you know, he needed to go and look for something. He sought out the Nika fruit. He sought out somebody that could, you know, eat the fruit. Roger only had 1 year to live, so he was never going to see any of this all come to fruition. But I think he imparted onto Shanks, like, you have to manifest all of this now. Like, this is your job, because I'm gonna die.
I saw a really interesting theory in my Discord actually earlier today from Atlas 100. So shout out to Atlas, but this ties into what you're saying perfectly, actually, because this touches a little bit on God Valley, but you know how everyone's been talking about the chests with the potentially the devil fruits inside of them.
Yeah.
So you know how Shanks was found in a chest at God Valley, so there's a chance that he may have been swapped out of the chest at some point for whatever devil fruit was inside. So the thought is potentially, at least what Atlas proposed, is that the Nika fruit may have been swapped for Shanks, and Roger had the choice between saving this baby or getting the fruit that he needed to complete his adventure. And he chose to forego the fruit to save Shanks, and that's what he told him. He said, it's your job to go protect the Gum Gum fruit. It's your job to do that. I chose you instead. You know, I chose to make you my son in that kind of way. And it's like, I don't regret
very
that.
One Piece
Maybe,
way, yeah.
Yeah, maybe at the end of his life, he told him, I don't regret what happened. Maybe he told him the truth of what happened at God Valley. And he's like, look, there's this fruit out there. The reason I can't complete my journey right now, and the reason we couldn't do anything with the One Piece, is because of that. Don't feel guilty. You know, it's your job now. And that's what I think that's a brilliant, if that's what it ends up being, that would be a perfect way to tie it together, in my opinion.
Because we need to know why Shanks cried, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna tie into all of that in one way or another. The truth of God Valley, the truth that he, you know, didn't get everything that he was going for. Brandon King said that he thinks the ancient kingdom is called Shinokuni, Land of the Dead, and opposes heaven. Maybe. I mean, I have nothing really to add there.
Yeah,
but
names are tough. Names are tough without any like context.
Yeah. Let's see. But I think it's gonna tie into more of the, you know, this like devil and demon stuff that we're kind of getting into now too. So we're probably on the right track there. Maxo, member for 29 months, said 29 months. I don't know how long that is anymore. It's more than 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. 2 years. 2 years and change.
Yep. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
And Grizzly Adams said, is it possible Brooke and Yorkie are from God Valley? Rumbar Pirates have kind of a cowboy vibe, and God Valley is Wild Wild West themed. Sorry, I threw the extra wild in there because I can't help but not think of,
The song?
The movie, right? Which also, dealt with, fighting a giant spider, and how fitting, because we're fighting a giant spider. See, we can tie everything into everything, guys. We can tie it all together here, guys. That's, but, fun movie fact about that. The only reason that they fought a giant mechanical spider at the end of that movie is because the producer of that film never made Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage in the 90s, where he really wanted Superman to fight a mechanical spider, which is why there's a Nicolas Cage cameo in The Flash of him fighting a mechanical spider. Anyway, I think that it's really possible. But the thing is I did a video recently where I kind of broke down, I went through and categorized all of the characters that would be alive and active during God Valley, and thematically, and went through thematically, and it was okay, who would make sense and who could actually be here and who could gain something from being there. I got comments like, oh, this dude just said everybody. No, I didn't say everybody. I kept some people out. But specifically, a lot of comments were could Brooke and Yorkie have been there? I didn't talk about Brooke and Yorkie in that video because Brooke was already in the Florian Triangle during God Valley. Everybody, all of the Rumbar pirates had already died about 12 years before God Valley. So, but they are from the West Blue. They do have a Wild West theme, even to the point where the Rumbar pirate ship is a bull. So that's really interesting, especially if we could get a little more into Brooke, and then he finds out that his entire homeland is gone too, on top of his friends. That could get
That'd
deep.
Be crazy. Because we haven't had God Valley get mentioned anywhere around Brooke or the Straw Hats, right? They have no idea about this at all, as far as the plot goes, right? Currently, so that's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, right, is we know that Brooke was, he was some sort of vizier, somewhere in the cabinet of whatever island he was on. So if it was God Valley, what if he was, a right or left hand for the king that we just saw get killed? I mean, right? Man. Which would be great. And I've also seen a lot of people tie Lafitte to Brooke. I'm not a Brooke and Lafitte fight shipper. I still want my heat on Lafitte. I want Sanji versus Lafitte. Sure. And second beyond that is I like the idea of Nami making it a navigator battle, but just because they have canes and he tap dances and all that, people want the Brooke of it all. But they are both from the West Blue, and it would be interesting if Brooke, if he was the Pell or something, the Chaka is Lafitte's dad or something. That could be interesting. And then you have Lafitte going on this trajectory, who would have been 3 years old during God Valley. Who knows who is actually going to, be in this particular flashback, or even how much we're getting, because chances are we get a Kaido-style flashback here where we don't get all of this until it's from Garp's POV, but, we just track Kuma through his life, just how he got out, then going to Sorbet, and, becoming the king there, while being a part of the Freedom Fighters, Revolutionary Army, Vegapunk.
Yes.
Being Bonnie's dad, all of that.
So, considering the people who are going to be on God Valley, how do you think, based on the current scenario we have set up right now, how does Roger work his way into this? Because that's what I've been trying to figure out. I think it's pretty apparent. We know that Rox is going to pull up, because we had in the Kaido flashback, someone was like, hey, we're going to God Valley. So we know that they're on the way, regardless of what's happening right now. But what are the circumstances that bring Roger there? And that's the thing I'm wondering, because I feel like they're going to be a big part of this flashback, more than I know everyone's expecting like a big focus on Rox with this flashback, but I think it's going to be as much on, we're going to get another Odin style focus on Roger for a bit too, I think, with this. Do you have any ideas about that?
I do, because I went back and I looked at the I think it was the volume 4 billion stuff, where we basically know what the last panel of God Valley is. You know, it's him sailing away with Rayleigh and, you know, a handful of his crew members, and they have a ton of treasure, and they're all saying, yeah, look at this score we got. And then amongst the chests is Shanks. So it's
Maybe Shanks.
They had no idea that they were getting Shanks, you know. But I also looked at it in the chests that are in 1095 and the chests that Shanks is in. There's differences. So in the way that they're designed, because the ones in 1095 have a particular line pattern on them that the Shanks chest did not have. It was more of like a bigger standard treasure chest thing. But so the way that Oda is kind of characterizing the end of God Valley is like Roger is legitimately a real pirate's pirate. Like, he just came in and he stole a bunch of money and now he's leaving. And everybody is happy, which is like completely it's like a weird tonal shift from what I would expect. I mean, I think it's like, oh man, we got away happy, but still, like, from everything that's being set up here, like it feels like it needs to be way more solemn than that. But I personally want Rox to show up because he wants to take down the world government, and he wants to attack the celestial dragons. That's from, you know, my beliefs that Rox is like probably some sort of a race that was discriminated against, like the Lunarians. So he's out for revenge, and he wants to attack as many celestial dragons as possible. He got a crew together. Now, the simple, more pirate version of everything is that all of this stuff that I think is propaganda isn't propaganda. Rox was bad, and he assembled all of these guys to go and get a score that Roger ends up actually leaving with. That isn't as interesting to me. You know, I mean, like, that's the way that it's being painted, but Oda's always a little more deeper than that. So that's why I think he actually got all of these people who, in actuality, during this time period, were painted with a little more of a gray area. Like, some people say he got his crew from doing a Davy Back fight and things like that. I don't believe that. I think that for it to work, for him to be this, like, great figure, he needs to be as magnanimous as Luffy is. He needs to have that power that Mihawk spoke about during Marineford that drew people together. So, yes. And if he does have that, then it'll recontextualize, like, the scenes with Luffy and Whitebeard. The moments like, don't let that kid die. Like, because he's seeing a little bit of his former captain in this guy. He's seeing a little bit of Roger in this kid. You know, Marco, don't let that kid die. And I think that if Rox, even if he was going about things the wrong way, still had good intentions, then I buy Whitebeard in particular working for him. Because it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to go get this score. We're going to go attack the Celestial Dragons. Whitebeard gets to send money back home to Sphinx. It all works out. Big Mom's dream? She went about it the wrong way, but the idea of it is right. Let's create this sort of utopia area where all races can live together, which furthers the point if her former captain was an oppressed race as well. You have Kaido, who was also discriminated against for being an Oni, even though he, like, we get the impression, or, you know, it's implied that at some point during God Valley, he's going to ditch everybody and run away. And he also kind of sides with the world government and like sees a little. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of Kaido like betraying Rocks in some way.
Yeah.
You know, like being responsible for his downfall, like kind of seeing the world government and seeing all of the, you know, the slaves and everything, and just kind of looking at that and saying, hey, I think that's actually a good idea. I'm going to go do that with a country myself.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
But then he like goes out and finds King, you know, who's a Lunarian. But so it's like there's some logic gaps that we kind of have to get past, but I also like the idea of him going after King if it's reminiscent of his former captain, but then it's even deeper and darker and more like just crazy if he is responsible for like the death of Rocks or something like that, and then went to go, like he's trying to make up for it in a way with King.
I could see that. It's interesting. If Rocks is a Lunarian, that implies a lot about Kaido's decision to free King, right? Because that would be like, okay, I know exactly how strong you guys can be.
Exactly.
So like,
which is what I'm talking about.
I need one of you guys, take you under my wing. I need a Rocks on my crew, like a guy like that. I've been thinking about a pretty interesting way to connect all of the Yonko who are on the Rocks Pirates and the Rocks Pirates to God Valley in a way that's not just them going there that day, but maybe more of a past connection. And I think that the way this connects is that line in the chapter that talked about the frequency of these events happening, right? With the manhunt basically that they're doing on the island
every 3 years.
So every 3 years. So if that is how it is, and it's a 3-year gap in between each of the games, then that makes me wonder, you know, what other kingdoms have already fallen victim to these games? So the way I thought about it was, all right, we have let's look at 3 characters here. We have Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard. They all seem to have a very similar set of circumstances in common. They were all children who were incredibly powerful and basically were forced out or forced to defend themselves in a ruined kingdom of some sort and escape through some means. So Big Mom was brought by her parents to Elbaf because some incident happened in her home country that they basically drove her out. They forced her to leave. So now they put her on Elbaf with Mother Carmel. Kaido was a child soldier. All that we know how that whole flashback went, where he was in a warring kingdom that would constantly engage in wars. And Whitebeard also was in a homeland that was ravaged by pirates because they were unaffiliated with the world government. So the way I've been looking at it is, what if all 3 of those characters, what if Rocks was a victim of these games himself, which drove him to fight the Celestial Dragons in this way? And what if the thing that connected all of his crewmates together, the reason that Whitebeard would even work with the guy, or that all these guys would work with him, is because they were also victims to the same thing to some degree. So, for example, Big Mom, I've always wondered about Big Mom's strength, and we learned about the Buccaneers recently, and I'm not totally confident that she is a Buccaneer because her parents both seem to be human. But there's an idea that came in my head, you know, Big Mom's older than Kuma, so she would have been around before him, before he would have been deemed like the last one or whatever. And if maybe there was a scenario where those 2 people weren't actually Big Mom's parents, maybe they were relatives or something of the sort, where they had to drop her off on Elbaf, of all places, this half giant technically, drop
Blood of the Giants.
Blood of the Giants. Take her out of the country that she was in and put her at Elbaf, because maybe the world government came down on her home country because of, you know, who she is, potentially. Then we have Kaido, whose home country, the Vodka Kingdom, right? They were absolutely, like, completely poor. Like they had to engage in war constantly to pay the celestial tribute. And I'm pretty sure the big thing was they wanted to trade Kaido to the world government so that they could get a spot in the Reverie, which tells me that they actually weren't a fully affiliated country of the world government, because they would have had a spot at Reverie if they were. So that they're fighting for a chance to be basically at the same table as everyone else.
Savage.
Which to me is like, okay, what brought the kingdom to this place? Why are they so run down? Why is it such a ravaged kingdom? Why are the people there forced to resort to warfare to even make a little bit of money to pay the tribute? Why are they so afraid that they have to do all this to pay the tribute? It could be that they were recently a victim to these games in the Vodka Kingdom, and the only reason Kaido is so strong is because he's one of the survivors that made it out of those games, right? He's like one of the ones that was like survival of the fittest. Where does his mentality come in? Well, maybe
Man
he
won
was
the Hunger
part of
Games.
He won the Hunger Games, right? So like if he was like one of the people who made it out of those games, that would explain a lot. If they same deal with Whitebeard. His island, Sphinx Island, was also unaffiliated. They didn't pay the tribute, so that they got raided by pirates constantly. Maybe it wasn't just pirates that destroyed his homeland. Could have been the same deal. The games could have been hosted there. So the way I see it is like maybe each of the Yonko are monsters that were bred by the world government's actions. The world government doing what they're doing with these islands, these games, are actually creating their worst enemies inadvertently. And these the children who lived in these countries, who managed to survive the horrors of these games, end up being these absolute like monster tanks of people who end up growing up to become the emperors. And then they end up joining Rox's crew because they all share that same motive, I think. And that's why, you know, if we're assuming that was Big Mom talking to Kaido in the flashback, hey, we're going to God Valley, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some more emotion in part of that, where they're like, hey, they're holding the games there, we have to go. Like, you know, like that's important to all of them potentially. So that's how I see that potentially connecting. I think the connection for me that seals the deal is the fact that all three of them were grown up in kingdoms that didn't have affiliations with the world government, and now we know these games take place in those very same locations. So
someone cooked here. I love that. You know, there's you know, we know that at least in the current time, there's only 50 affiliated countries out of 170 countries. So there's a lot of countries that you know, could have been doing all of this. And you know, I wonder, over 800 years, every 3 years, could we have had them on just about every island? You know, every. I mean, I don't know. That I'm not doing the math right now, but it sounds like it would add up to the point where people know about these things. These things have been going on. They've been happening.
Yeah.
Shout out to Third Eye Guy Michael Lacoste. Remember, 27 months. He said, "I'm late, but I finally got a Sunday free to be here." He said, "One thing that gets me about his name is that Mega Man is a popular Japanese hero character named Rockman there, you know, and I swear I've seen the name used for other hero characters as such, Rock Lee. I think there's more to it. I think there just has to be. L said Rox is Lunarian who got his wings torn, like a Lightbringer. Well, I like the idea of him being a Lunarian that doesn't have wings.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've always liked the idea of that showing up somewhere, just because we have like the Skypians and Enel, so we have someone who is from the sky but doesn't have wings. So I almost expect that with the Lunarians too. There might be a Lunarian out there who similarly lacks the signature wings. Up until recently I'd put that money on Nika, but now I'm starting to question that because of the Buccaneer reveal. But we'll obviously get into that. Here's something to think about with the games. Every 3 years. Well, we had 2 years since the time skip. What's the proximity to the last games that happened here? Because it might have been just before the story started, or we're in the 2-year mark right now, and by the end of this 3rd year, we're going to have a game that's going to cap off the story, potentially.
The games are going to happen in Elbaf.
Yeah, well, okay, so funny you mentioned that. So let me ask you this question. If Elbaf is unaffiliated, why haven't they done it there yet? And there's other places that make me wonder. It's like, okay, Fishman Island, they've had problems with the Fishman for so long. You would have assumed that at some point they would have done this to Fishman Island. They would have done this to Wano. Wano's rich in resources. The Drunken Iron Ore, not affiliated. The obvious answer is, well, maybe the samurai are enough of a defense force to keep them away. The giants are so strong, but I don't know. The world government has a lot of weapons at their disposal to take an island if they really wanted to. So the thing that I've been thinking is it possible that they've been ignoring islands with ancient weapons on them because they don't want to have the ancient weapons turned on them? So if they did that to Fishman Island, Poseidon is gonna give them problems. Same thing with Wano, Pluton potentially. Like, is there maybe a connection to Elbath? One of the reasons they haven't touched Elbath is because the third ancient weapon.
I think logically for Fishman Island, it might be a thing where they built Fishman Island on, as far down as they could go to be somewhere where the world government and the Celestial Dragons wouldn't dare go to try and get them. I think Very Motivated in the chat did the math and said that 267 games would have happened with another one eventually coming up. That's awful. It's insane. Yeah. It's like it's the World Cup, it's the Olympics. It's
yeah. It's a very, very messed up version of the Olympics.
But I really like your idea about multiple people being phased by this. Now, part of my most recent video was talking about who could have been there for God Valley in particular. And it's like a lot of those people don't necessarily need to be there if they were already on a different island that was the effects of this game happened at other islands. But I got a lot of comments on that video where it was like, I wouldn't like it if so many people were at the same place at the same time. And it's like, I personally would like it if that was the case. Right. We have a situation here where Oda wants to end this story soon. And if we have a jumping off point, a launch point for so many of our characters, then it's just, what do we need individual flashbacks for every character if we just have one gigantic flashback that all of these characters are in? Like, one of my favorite ideas are that most, if not all, of the Warlords were here on God Valley and took a part in this. Because you have, in particular, the best fit is Moria. Moria is from the West Blue. In his child photo, he doesn't look like he was a slave, so, maybe he was born on God Valley. Maybe God Valley is his home, right? And then he goes through all of this, and maybe he ends up, hiding during these Hunger Games with Kuma, and they become like war buddies to a degree. And then this recontextualizes why Kuma went out of his way to deliver the message personally in Thriller Bark, because they know each other and they're, and all this. And then what if the entire Warlord system wasn't actually a thing until the Great Pirate Era, and these pirates started rising up, and then they started putting the pieces together where it was like, oh, all of these major figures were at God Valley. So they know too much. And this goes in line with my thinking that, like, Cypherpole Zero is almost imprisonment for people who just know too much in the government. So
yeah,
the balance of powers is, we're going to let you be pirates, but we've got shackles on you and we're monitoring you. So you have Moria, who was 12 years old during this. You have Crocodile, who was 8 years old during this. You have Mihawk, who was 6 years old during this. If they all played a role in this. Now, Crocodile was born in the Grand Line, but that's not to say that he couldn't be visiting God Valley during this particular time. Mihawk, and he's got like clean clothes in his kid picture. Mihawk has tattered clothes though. So, like, what if he was a slave? What if he has a bunch of scars on his back? Recontextualizing, that line, between him and Zoro. But Crocodile and Mihawk created some sort of like older brother, younger brother scenario during the God Valley incident, which then ties into why they would eventually form the Cross Guild. And the Cross Guild eventually will become a group of all of these individuals that were there at God Valley and survived. So Moria will join the Cross Guild by way of Perona, who already has a connection to Mihawk. So then you would have all these warlords. They were all just built by God Valley. They all survived. They all went to Roger's execution. They all became these pirates that ended up just getting crushed by the world government and kind of resigning to the fact that they'll all just kill me if I don't follow these rules, right? We get the scene with Moria at Marineford where Doflamingo is like, no, someone higher up wants you dead.
Yeah.
Why? Because you know too much. You were there at God Valley. You failed like the one decree that we gave you where it was like, you need to make sure that all warlords stay strong. Do not diminish this balance of power. If we're going to keep you alive, you need to, you need to prove why we're keeping you alive. And
that would also add context to maybe Boa and her past too, with the Kuja pirate, right? Because she also has a past as a slave with the world. So like that theming does kind of umbrella over all the warlords potentially, and Kuma would be like the gateway into showing how that actually all came to be.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea.
And
I like that a lot.
It's I think we can get deeper, man. I think we can get deeper. We already have Kuma that we know as a slave here, so it's just by that point, who are we missing? I think it's all everybody knows too much. Doflamingo knows too much. So it's like if you're going to live among the humans and you're going to be a pirate, then you need to fall in line with these rules as well. Jinbei, maybe there's more to his past that we know. We know that most of those guys were slaves. But it wasn't really implied that Jinbei was. But
I feel like Jinbei being a warlord
outlier.
More, I think he would have been definitely. I think his thing was a bargaining chip sort of thing, like for Fishman Island more than anything else.
Yeah. Maybe it was a thing like making up for Fisher Tiger.
What about his replacement potentially? Because Jinbei was no longer a warlord when Buggy became one. So Buggy could have the connection to God Valley, and that brings one of the warlords in place of Jinbei. That would be that connection there.
Well, he also knows too much because he was on Roger's crew.
True. Right.
So we're keeping it alive with that. And then you have Law, who is from Flevance.
Okay, so I actually have some thoughts on Flevance. Before we get into that, could I take a quick 1 minute away from the computer? Just to run, gonna take a bathroom break, but I'll be right back. And then I actually have some thoughts, because I know we're gonna get into it on that, so.
Alright. Shout out to Terrible TJ, member for 7 months, who said, y'all cooking, like the stream. Yeah, guys, let's get these likes up. Like and subscribe. Subscribe to Hidden. Let's see here. Yeah, shout out to the 427 people in here for, a theory for theory, especially when Spider-Man just came out. So you guys are hanging out with me and Hidden when you could be playing Spider-Man. Hidden will be right back. Theory for theory, we'll be right back. Bum, bum, bum. Anyway, Mark's. So no, it was Chief. Theory for theory, aka the cook-off. Let's see. Duran Rasui said Jinbei wasn't at Roger's execution. Yeah, I was specifically talking about the Cross Guild. So Crocodile was there, Mihawk was there, Moria was there. If Doflamingo joins, Doflamingo was there. Jinbei is not going to join the Cross Guild because he's a member of the Straw Hats. Catching up on the chat here.
All right.
Very clarified. 267.3 repeating. Yeah, welcome back,
Give him the
brother.
super chat. Thank you, brother. Yeah,
Juxtaplicity said every 3 years means there was one 2 years ago. Well, it could be anywhere in the last 3 years, not necessarily.
Yeah. So I wonder if when they happen, do they? I don't think they wipe the countries like they did with God Valley. Something happened in God Valley to make that like that wiping occur. So I wonder if the other countries that have been victim to these games are still just around and like it's just part of their history now. We're talking about Flevens. I was wondering if maybe the context for them going in and cleaning house at Flevens was a little bit more than just the white lead disease. Because I don't know. I mean, obviously they want to quarantine the island and stuff, but the degree of violence that they used there seemed a little bit of an overreaction, I would say, to put it lightly. So maybe it recontextualizes that reaction as, hey, they were like, oh, this island's doomed anyway. Let's just, let's make something of it, So that could be...
Yeah, I want to tie it into the game somehow, but I don't have enough context for it.
Same, yeah.
And, the only thing I can think of is that, if they have a chairman for the games and they decide how they're going to be played, and they're not always Hunger Games style, and one year it was just like, I kind of want to just poison an island and just watch it slowly, just...
Oh, if it wasn't even a white lead thing, like if it was something completely different that they just like put... Oh, man, that would be awful.
Like they just started the the epidemic. Just let these rats scurry around the island, and then they put up some cameras. I just want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it even makes you wonder what the white lead is in the first place, right? Like if it is from that material if this disease did come from it, like I just wonder, are there just like other ores or like things sitting in the ground that could just potentially kill people? I don't know. I feel like the world of One Piece has always been a little bit less harsh than that. Like maybe it's just for the context of the story, but it seems like anything that's like overtly horrible that happens in the world in some way has a connection to the world government or some sort of machinations that we don't totally know about. So I'm willing to believe that it was orchestrated in some way, and maybe Flevens was an inside job. So we no way to confirm that, but I have my suspicions. I do after this recent chapter, I do. So, other people on God Valley. Who do you think? Oh, sorry, I don't mean to.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that. Just on top of that, as Maxo said, I mean, Emu got rid of Lelucia because it was close. It's not out of the realm where it's just like I want to toy with these people. Just start this epidemic here.
And do you think of the Revolutionaries? Who do you think? Because we have a couple there right now. Who do you think? Who else do you think of the Revs are going to be at God Valley?
So, the two that make the most sense are the two that are from the West Blue, which are Morley and Ushianu. Now, we have no context on Ushianu's age, but Morley definitely would have been alive. And I don't know if we'll see them. I don't know if we need to see them. I mean, definitely, look, Dragon has to appear. He needs to be a part of this, and we get into Dragon. This is gonna be a the long conversation here. We do these two super chats and then we'll get into that.
Sure.
Lucy B said these games stopped after God Valley because the Celestial Dragons almost died and they lost all these devil fruits. That's an interesting take.
Maybe they learned from it.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Could be that the Buster Call was invented after God Valley. They were like, okay, well, no point in doing these games. Let's just have a Buster Call for the island, and let's just go destroy the island.
ZMP323 said Dofi's birthday is October 23rd. Maybe he shows up next chapter, either God Valley or in a cover story. Yeah, I mean, I did talk about, getting a Dofi update for Birthday Piece. The way to do it now would be to show that homing is at the game.
That would make sense.
And I would love if God Valley is the the thing that makes him start questioning, like maybe he never went to one of the games and he's like, you know what, I kind of want to like go live with the humans. I'm kind of done with you guys. But a 3-year-old Doflamingo is watching the games like,
He's like, oh, this looks great.
Yeah. This makes so much sense.
He would be like that.
Terrible TJ, what exactly was tree fever? Maybe world government was behind it. Yeah, I mean, we do need to get into tree fever. You know, it's something that was probably, not to go down a full rabbit hole on tree fever, but it could be something that, it'd be crazy if that's how, like, Nika died, or, like, that was the thing that the world government did to wipe out their enemies, and then it's, like, a nothing thing in the Nolan and Calgara flashback, where it's like, well, we have the cure for this now, but they didn't back then.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah, because we didn't have the cure until 200 or so years ago. So
400, yeah.
Oh, 400, wow. Yeah, right.
And then Muglatan said, was the Red Line truly around before the world government? We don't know.
I will say to that, I think that the landmass that the Lunarians were supposed to have been on top of was there. Was the Red Line a full connected ring around the entire planet? That I'm more dubious about. That seems more constructed. But I'm willing to believe that there was some massive continent that existed, right? Because, you know, the Pangea castle, as it implies, I'm willing to believe there was a massive landmass that the Lunarians were on top of. Just, it didn't look the way it does currently. That's my short answer to that. I have a very long answer to that, but
oh yeah,
yeah, of course, as we all do.
Yeah. Emil said they might start the games again. They need food. See, that's a great point, and I actually like this. And now this will go into the dragon conversation of it all, right?
Cool.
I think that what we just saw happen at Marijoa, with the revolutionaries showing up, destroying the food, you know, destroying the resources, is like an inversion of the games. So here we're at God Valley sorry, I don't want to side with them. No, they are here, right?
Yeah.
We are watching them do this on God Valley because they want the resources there. So if this is all about the resources, and then you have Kuma, Ivankov, and eventually Dragon will work himself into this, and they're seeing what they're after, then their ultimate plan to attack the Celestial Dragons is to go after what they would be going for in these games in the first place. So it's like, attack their food supplies, attack everything that they took from other people, and you know, that would be that. Now, Dragon would be 17 years old during this incident. Other 17-year-olds would also be Olvia, who's also from the West Blue, and Sakazuki. And
oh man.
So, Jackie Chan said God Valley inspired by the Trail of Tears. As we get into it, potentially. I wouldn't be surprised. What I want from this is the theory has been around for years. Rookie Dragon Marine with Garp at God Valley, and he is like best friends with rookie Sakazuki.
Yep.
And they are both there with Garp, but they get two different perspectives of everything that happens. And by the end of it, Dragon, takes off his marine hat and, his clothes and all that, and he leaves with Kuma and Ivankov, and he starts the Freedom Fighters. And Sakazuki starts to see everything that's going on. And there's a couple of different ways that this can go, right? But one thing that I would want is I want this to inform, if he's there, I want this to inform why he does what he does at Ohara. So if there's a situation where Akainu is good, right? Like, he is a good man that is actually almost Kobe-like, trying to save as many people as possible, but the people he ends up saving are people that go on to murder people afterwards. So he saves, like, maybe he helps Kaido leave, or he helps Roger leave, and then Roger ends up starting the Great Pirate Era. He goes on to kill people. Kaido goes on to kill all of these people, and then Akainu sees this, and then when he's at Ohara, he's like, I'm not going to do the thing I did back then. I'm saving nobody, because anybody on this ship could be a Kaido, could be a Roger, could be somebody that will become a problem and murder other people, so I'm just going to just murder them now. Yes,
I fully believe that. I am that's my headcanon. I had an Akainu video I put out, like the last video I put out was the Akainu video. I talked about that briefly, but the idea that they did work together, like Dragon and Akainu were both Marines, worked together, probably buddy, and that rift that might have made Dragon leave the Marines gave Akainu that perspective of like, take no prisoners, right? Don't give him a chance to go back into the world and become a problem later. And he, the thing that makes me wonder about that is if he let Dragon get away, let's say, or if he let some of these other people that would go on to become great pirates get away, the fact that he let Aokiji live after their encounter might speak something about, it wasn't just a straight up fight to the death. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes there. And I really like, really minor detail, but on the Chinese zodiac, you have all the symbols, right? And oftentimes the position of these symbols relative to each other actually is important in the zodiac. For example, in the north, I believe in the northeast part of it, the tiger and the bull are next to each other, which represents when you cross the tiger and bull together, that makes an Oni. And Onigashima in the folktale is at the northeast of the island. So their position there makes sense. The monkey, the rooster, and the dog are all next to each other.
Purple tiger, green bull.
Purple tiger and green bull next to each other, right? So all that's clearly thought out by Oda. Interesting detail, though. Directly opposite the dog is the dragon. Yeah, so it's like, okay, so Oda's doing something here. Oda's doing something with these positions. So if we have the dragon and the dog oppose each other, that lines up. If you look into Akainu's like inspirations, the things that kind of shaped the creation of his character, I specifically watched the movie that his actor, like the likeness for him is taken from. The movie's most well known for Battles Without Honor and Humanity. And throughout that movie, the character is, not to go heavy into spoilers, but throughout the movie, the character's constantly fighting his allegiances, dealing with people that he thinks are on his side, and then they're not on his side. He gets betrayed by his bosses. He gets betrayed by his comrades, people that he used to fight in war with. These are people that he was brothers in arms with, and now they're finding themselves at different sides of a spectrum here of loyalty and what it means to be in that movie, what it means to be a Yakuza. We know now that the Yakuza theming is very prevalent in the Marines. We see Sakazuki with his tattoos, all that stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was a big motivation for his character. His name is Sakazuki is the word for the exchange of sake cups. And in the Yakuza world, if you break that oath, it's punished by death. So for him, it's like his name references the bond itself of being a Marine. And for those who break that oath of what it means to him, he rewards that with death. That's the only answer he has for it. So I feel like that's a big part of his character is that
and that's why I want him never to be redeemed.
Same.
And yeah, like I want Akainu to have the same philosophy that Bellamy had, even though he's gonna get his world shattered when he starts to learn the truth of different things. Emu, that he's on the wrong side of justice. When he's absolute. It's absolute. So he's the type of person where he's got to save face. So even in a situation where he would be losing face, I think that he would stay with the Marines. If it comes out that hey, you're following the wrong people and everything, he's gonna be like, yeah, I know, but I'm too ingrained in this anyway. This is my justice. This is the way I believe. I hate pirates. And, whether it's the only way that he would change anything is if he's still attacking pirates, if he turns against the world government, it's because he wants to create his own. So he's gonna be like, no, I'm gonna reform it the way that I want, and he's just going all out against everybody. But he would never like side with Luffy. I never want him to do that. I never want him to go up against the world government and then like give any pirate like a it's never going to happen. Like he would sooner jump off of the red line, in my opinion, than he would to like betray his beliefs.
I think if anything, he's gonna attack the Celestial Dragons. I think there's a chance where because they have him on a leash right now, and I think if at any point Akainu gets the belief in his head that I can do this job a lot better if I don't have anyone bossing me around, and then he's like, okay, I want to get rid of pirates. These guys are in the way of that now. The Celestial Dragons are getting in the way of, like, let's say he has like a really clear shot at getting Luffy or getting some other pirate or ending some conflict, and then the Celestial Dragons hold him back. They're like, the Gorozei are like, nope, like you have to follow our orders. Go protect them. Don't do your thing. Don't end the war right now. And then he's thinking in his head, I could end this. Like this is all I've ever wanted, but you're getting in the way of that. When you put that type of situation on a guy like Sakazuki, I think the likely answer for him is like, okay, I'm just gonna kill them too. Like, you're getting in the way of me stopping pirates. You're no better than pirates then. So I'm gonna kill you and them. And then I think he might do a Neo Marines Zed situation where he breaks off of the military arm of the world government and tries to go full military coup, like dictator mode.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Shout out to my guy Yamil, who said Sakazuki is Javert and Les Miserables. I've made that comparison a couple of times. Like that is what I would think would be the most fitting thing. You know, his world shatters, and instead of, you know, changing anything, he literally just like jumps off the red line, jumps into water, and he's just like, I've been doing the wrong thing. It's dark, and I mean it's a shonen, so we still have to get a fight in there. So I don't expect it to happen, but it would be fitting. Shout out to Partha, who said, "What if Whitebeard found the Nika fruit at God Valley, but only had the chance to save one, stealing a devil fruit and leaving a Celestial Dragon's kid to die? Is Barry Rock's pirate foregoing power to save a child and escape to start a family, though? Very Newgate." So my thinking here, I don't know if the Nika fruit is going to play into God Valley, although it is interesting, you know, if we're getting into all of the Nika of it all and everything, and then the fruit is there, and then we see how it eludes us. But I think that Whitebeard already has his fruit by this point, because he's 34 or 36 years old, and he's got to be a menace by this point. So I like the idea of him already having his fruit and not getting it here. What I'd love to see is that the God Valley incident is the start of the Whitebeard pirates, because Rox ends up disbanding, right? And this is how Whitebeard starts his family. Jozu would be 4 years old, and he is from the West Blue. So if he's here, he could be one of the first kids that he takes in. Marco is 7 years old. He's not from the West Blue, but if Marco and Jozu were here, his two, you know, top commanders, essentially, right? And the first two Whitebeard pirates that we were ever essentially introduced to, if they were his first kids and he actually raised them, then we get an even further explanation to why everybody calls him Pops in the first place, because he started going around maybe even collecting kids, to your point, Hidden, that were affected by these games.
Yeah. Oh, that would be beautiful, actually. Like, because, you know, obviously the theme of family with him is like super strong, and he just kind of like picks up people. But this really ties into the idea that Blackbeard may have been affected by these games in a similar way, which explains his orphan situation, the whole thing of his past with him crying in the moon above. Crying in front of a moon, and you have the main God Knight responsible for probably a lot of slaughter on God Valley with a moon haircut. I don't know. Maybe that symbolism connects even deeper to Blackbeard there. And if that's true, then that could be the case. Yeah, it might have been with all the Whitebeard pirates, or a lot of them were picked up in similar circumstances. Because why else would Whitebeard just pick up this random guy? He's just like, hey, I'm orphaned and I got nowhere to go. Yeah, he cares about family, but I mean, there's a lot of people out there in the world that could be on the Whitebeard pirates, and I feel like he chose his crew members maybe for specific reasons, or to some degree, like, he empathized with them on a deeper level. So, if they all
picked
were
up a bunch
victims,
of orphans.
Yeah.
I like that because that's what he ended up doing with Ace anyway. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, you don't have a dad, kid. You need someone to set you on the right path here.
Yeah.
Become my son. I've got a bunch of them. Partha also said, member for 9 months, if Hitten's theory about the world government originally all being pirates is true, Akainu realizing he's been a dog for people no better than those he opposes would definitely make him go on his own. I like that, and I also, to your point of him attacking the Celestial Dragons, it's a great, it's a great tool. If Oda wanted to kill all of them,
Yeah. Have a bad guy do it.
have a bad guy do it.
Yeah, exactly. Someone that we can root for fighting against the villains of the story, but we can't root for on a moral level. We're like, we still hate this guy and we want him to have a bad end, but at least all the bad guys have a bad end independent of having the good guys do it. Like, the good guys don't have to sour their reputation by murdering people on panel. You can just have Akainu do that. I think that would be a lot more that would be a more shonen way to do it, if anything,
Maxo said, if we look at Dressrosa as the parallel for the world government pirate conflict, would that make Akainu the stand-in for Bellamy? That's what I kind of brought up earlier a little bit. I think they're going to attack things in the same vein. Like, they're going to have the same sort of thinking where it's, I know I'm wrong, but I'm not going to admit I'm wrong. And Beam said, Cross Guild bound together with the connection of Shanks, with the current exception of Crocodile, with Buggy being his brother, Mihawk being his former rival, connection between Shanks and Croc. I mean, the connection between all of those people is that they were there for Roger's execution. I'm really excited for more just Crocodile, and that's why I would really like for him to play a role in this God Valley stuff. Especially if Mihawk's involved, we need more. But the biggest thing that made me think that Croc could be here also is because Ivankov is now involved in this, and we can get an understanding of what the secret is between the two of them. If they really do have this past, they were both on this island at the same time. Maybe the secret isn't that Crocodile is a woman, but that he was. I saw someone put a comment on my last video. He was like the Prince of God Valley or something, and it's like, he needed to get away, so she knows like his truth that he's trying to hide from the world. There's got to be something just a little bit deeper. I
never even put together that the secret would come out here, but now that you're mentioning, Ivankov's here. If Crocodile lines up where he's there, we're gonna learn about that secret in this flat. Like, that's the only place where you could fit it in the story and make it work. So like, that has to happen. I feel like if Crocodile ends up being in this flashback anywhere, I'm prepared for what you just said. Like, the secret's coming out in this flashback for sure.
And Crocodile's imagery as a child negates this, right? But just because he's like all clean clothes, he's holding a gun, he looks real sharp, right? Yeah. But what if that image is after? So what if Crocodile actually was a slave? So he was born in the Grand Line, but then he was transferred over here to God Valley. So his secret, just like everybody that is secretly a slave in this series, they all want to hide that. And Ivankov both share that same thing, but he gets away. What is the West Blue known for? The West Blue is known for being the home of the 5 major mafia families, right?
Yeah.
Capone.
Oh, wait.
Capone was born in the West Blue. He's 4 years old during this, but it doesn't apply. But if Crocodile gets away, but then his dad, his One Piece dad, ends up being like a mafia boss, right? Then the reason for the clean clothes are because he shacked up with like Dufeld or something. And, you know, then just sort of rose up in those ranks. But everything that he heard at God Valley, like he had to overhear someone talking about poneglyphs, the ancient weapons, like Alabasta. Like these are things that need to come out, right? Because he had privileged knowledge that a lot of characters in the series have no idea about. So the West Blue is also home to Clover. Does Clover play a role here and he starts talking about things? Or more so, Rocks, I believe, knows about rocks. You know, he knows about the poneglyphs, he knows about the ancient weapons. If he has some sort of interactions with Crocodile, then, you know, things can kind of go from there. Is Crocodile a chore boy for Rocks? Or I saw Dak in the chat earlier, I don't know if he's still here, but Dak's got the theory that, you know, Crocodile is Rocks' son. I don't think that that's going to happen, but I would love it. You know, it's like, because it just like platforms my boy.
And he has that vendetta against Whitebeard for some reason that we saw at Marineford. And it's like, oh man, I'm sold on this. I'm expecting Crocodile now. That fits too well.
8 years old.
Because there's a lot of there's a lot of details.
Every major flashback in the series, how old is everybody? 8 years old.
Really? Is that true? I have to. Oh man.
Nami's 8. Luffy's 8. Robin's 8. Sanji's 8 in at least the Judge one.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 years. Huh? Everyone just has some tragedy happen to them at 8 years old. That's like.
Yeah, I think Law was 8. Or maybe I don't know. 70% of all flashbacks, the character's 8 years old.
Wow. I wonder if there's even any tie there to like on a grand scale, 8 years, 800 years. Like if there's an idea of like, I don't know. Obviously it's a very loose connection, but like the number kind of thing, like on a grander scale, like maybe like maybe the history of the world in a way can kind of tie into this theme around like characters in their youth and they're maybe at 8 years old, you know, they undergo some trauma.
Well, I wonder if there's something in Japanese that we're maybe missing. You know, like I know that 4 has connotations for death, but like what does 8 have? Or is there something culturally in Japan where it's like you're viewed as a young adolescent when you reach 8? You know, it's like.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that for the 800-year number, that might actually tie into Japanese folklore, directly through Yaobikuni. I don't know if you've heard of this since some of the recent chapters. I've seen it floating around. Ever since Saturn's demon form or whatever got revealed, they were connecting it to the yokai, right? And they were trying to find how each of the Gorozei might connect to some other yokai, and then they brought it around to Imu, and the connection for Imu is the Yaobikuni. And it's a nun who lived for 800 years. They lived for 800 years because they had infinite youth, and the specific number is 800, which is like something that stuck out to me. It's like, okay,
nothing's coincidental. I say it all the time. Oda is he's blatant with it. He's blatant with it. You know, like even Math Piece is just, come on, dude. You know, there was an unplanned break, but if there wasn't, this chapter would have been on the 4-year anniversary of Sengoku even mentioning God Valley in the first place.
Has it really been 4 years?
Yeah, it was 4 years since 957.
Oh man.
So it's one issue more than 4 years and one issue is the Math Piece for the last chapter.
I still have your Vivi return chapter written down here. I have it on my desk. I'm waiting for 1103.
1103, baby. 1103, baby. It's coming. It's coming. All right.
Could I ask you one question about Vivi? Do you think Alabasta is going to be the focus? At least, I don't know if we're going back to Alabasta, but do you think we're going to get some time in Alabasta again, maybe showing some sort of destruction or something happened to her homeland around that time, like at the mark that Vivi should return. You think we're gonna get a look into some of that?
Well, I mean, now that we're talking about it, it would be interesting, considering that Cobra's dead, if they just declare that Alabasta is no longer affiliated and this is the year for the game, and then they go to Alabasta to do the game.
Oh my god, that'd be so crazy.
Like, we've never returned to an island, but it's like, if the island that we were to return to is Alabasta, that's so crazy because it just ties back into how Oda set up all of the seeds for just everything in that arc. Like, it is the first time we learned about the Void history, that it even existed. It's the first poneglyph, first mention of ancient weapons. It's the first time we see a Vegapunk invention. Like, Oda was cooking and setting up so much that is just not recognized enough. And they were so sure that Pluton was there, but now we've been told that Pluton's in Wano, but maybe that's another fake out, and Pluton really was there, and it's like that's another reason why we have to go back. I don't know. I think...
I like the game's idea, though, like recontextualizing saving Alabasta as like a run back, but this time it's like on a much bigger scale with the world government coming down on it.
And it's potent because we know these characters, right? We have an emotional attachment to Koza, Toto, and, you know, Igaram, Terracotta, you know, like all of these different characters. Like, we already know them. They've already been built up. So if they're getting attacked and enslaved and all this stuff, then we can also get a reason for why a tunnel was built underneath Alabasta going to the other island for the hot springs. So that's their way to escape during the games. They go to the...
I personally, I would love that. I think if we had like some high stakes, because like it's hard. Obviously, we care about, like, you know, people's well-being in One Piece, but like from a writing perspective, you want to kind of have that, like you said, that emotional attachment to whatever's going down. If we're gonna have the world government do anything truly heinous, I think it has to involve characters we know and love, locations we care about that we've been to, that have deep emotional ties to not only us but to the Straw Hats themselves. We just got out of Wano. Nothing's going to happen to Wano in the near future, as far as I can guess. But it's been a while since Alabasta, and now we have all the Vivi Cobra stuff going down. So if I'm worried about any one island in the world right now, it's that one. I feel like that's a dangerous one, especially because of the D reveal. Now that we have the D reveal with Lily, and it's like, okay, if Emu for whatever reason associates Alabasta with the source of the troubles with the D clan, that might be better than, oh, it's right near us. It's, you know, it's not even about how close the island is to them. This might be like an actual target of this, you know, them wanting to destroy it for a reason that makes sense. You know, so
I mean, now that we're on this thing, so I do want Vivi to come back. Obviously, I want her to go to Laugh Tale with the gang, and, you know, I want her to be a part of Elbaf because she was a part of Little Garden, and, you know, it will be 1,000 chapters from Little Garden by 1115. But everything is kind of leaning. Sorry, we were 115 was Little Garden, so 1115 Elbaf. But the
awesome.
Dragon, Sabo, Ivankov, and Kuma have to play a role in Egghead at this point. So I think that by the time this flashback is going to end with Kuma, like, landing in front of Saturn and probably doing like some sort of sacrifice play, saving Bonnie, saving everybody, pawing somebody away, maybe, who knows, right? But ultimately, you have all of these ships that are outside, and what I want is like kind of a reflection and a mirror of how Ace came in and took out all the billion ships in Alabasta. I want Sabo to take out like a bunch of these marine ships, and some sort of an interaction with Dragon here, because Dragon was introduced in chapter 100. 1100 would be 1,000 chapters from that, and so if we're getting Dragon, I think we're out of this flashback by like at least the end of 1099 to kind of get this kind of stuff, unless Oda really gives us a full like long God Valley flashback, which would be insane. I don't know if we're going to get everything here. I would love to, but these are going to be a lot of dense chapters here if that's the case. But the plot is demanding that Luffy, Sabo, and Vivi are all in one room together to talk about what happened in the Reverie. And like that's what Cobra's like dying wish was. Like you need to explain all of this stuff. You need to make sure that Vivi knows that she's a D and everything. And if Robin is there too, she can speak more to like what she thinks D means because it's relevant to the story to kind of get into it. But potentially we might be setting up here, if it's something where we do have to go to Alabasta or something like that, where we have to create two factions of teams, where it's like one group goes to Elbaf and Laughtail or something, and then another group goes to Alabasta to stop the games. And in that case, this goes back to, shout out my boy Matt Owens. We had a long conversation about this. He loves Vivi, but he does not think that she's going to join back with the crew. He thinks that she's going to join the Revolutionary Army. And
I like that.
His points all made a lot of sense, and I was just sitting there like, God damn it, man. But
I want Vivi on the crew. Like,
yeah, no, exactly. But it's like, and the more I thought about it, I started coming up with my own things, because it's like you go back to ASL, and you have a lot of similarities between Sabo and Vivi. Their stories in those two flashbacks like mirror each other a lot. You have instances, like even micro incidences, where she gets into a fight with Koza, and Koza hits her, and then Toto's ready to like commit seppuku for his son assaulting the princess, right? And Cobra's just like, hey, come on, kids will be kids, right? But then you have Sabo getting into a fight with some just regular noble, and Sabo's mom is ready to like kill Sabo. So
yep.
So it's like there's a lot of mirroring between those two characters. And if there's a scenario where they learn about the games, and it's a thing where the Revolutionary Army is like, okay, we're going to go to Alabasta and we're going to stop these games while you continue your journey to become the Pirate King. And then Vivi goes with them to like save her country. I could see that as we're going in and we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Don't want it. I don't want.
Fair enough.
I need. I want my full crew back.
I do want Vivi to be with the Straw Hats again, just because I love their dynamic. I do think that, especially after the goodbye, like getting that reunion is going to be so satisfactory. Like for me, like, it would, in my opinion, it would probably, I guess, make more sense in terms of like power scaling to have Vivi run with the Revolutionaries, because they're kind of like a more of a mixed bag in terms of like what they're capable of, and how like in the front lines they are. Because like you can have Vivi doing stuff more from like the background. I don't know if it would be rough, I think, to throw Vivi in the Straw Hats, where they're going to be having these really, really intense fights, considering she's had no combat experience. She's been on princess duty for the last 2 years. So like, I don't want to downplay what you can do, but I just feel like
I hate that argument though, bro. I hate that argument.
I understand. I just like it's more of like a feeling it, like a just feeling it out sort of thing.
Everybody tries to downplay Vivi when like she was on site with everybody. Like she infiltrated a criminal syndicate and rose in the ranks of that syndicate. And I feel like Oda was implying that she wasn't like slacking around when she got onto the ship and she started doing these flips and everything. He's like, stop, blah 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 blah. And it's like, you forget I'm a pirate too, and like all this stuff. Shout out to Barry who said Chaka can do it. And real quick, Ian, the guy said, this is an all-timer. My mind has been blown at least 20 times now. I caught up with One Piece right at the end of Wano, and it's been a roller coaster ride since. Thank you for all the fun talks, and toss a sub to the boys. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Vivi will be able to handle herself. I guarantee you. If she comes back, it's no different than having Usopp, Nami on the crew as well.
I agree. I think she can hold her own. It's just like, do I think she's going to be able to carry a proportionate amount of weight to the rest of the Straw Hats when it comes for like the final matchups, I guess you could say. Like, can I see her fighting off like standard Marines, standard like more like lower tier characters? Yeah, I could see her easily like beating up, half of the scrubs that are in the Marines right now or in the world government. But then when you have the upper echelons, like we have CP0, the God Knights, the Gorozei, Emu, like those are all characters that it would be hard for me to believe that Vivi could make that jump. That's the big issue.
Vivi Niku, bro. Kuma shows up.
That would change things. That would change a lot.
Kuma shows up. He gets killed by Saturn.
Yeah.
And the fruit materializes on Morgan's blimp that has arrived. She eats it, and then we come to find out that not only does she have this power now, she also has the power that her ancestor Nefertari D. Lily had and sent the poneglyphs across the world with. So it's just
if that happens, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you 100% then. Like if she gets that power, I have no doubt in my mind she's gonna cook like crazy with it.
Oh, and shout out to Maxo also. If Vivi gets the Niku, we're worldwide immediately. Miss Worldwide. All right.
Now speaking
of me model Pitbull.
I think that Akainu briefly missed that one. He could have gotten that for. He was very close. I compared him to a Pitbull a couple times in my video. That's what he feels like, like the dog, red dog. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the Niku no Mi. I wanted to ask you about this because we haven't talked about the Buccaneers at all. Do you have any takes on any big takes in the Buccaneers? Do you have any ideas of like what was the great crime that like the great taboo or whatever that the Buccaneers did that put them on the extinction list or whatever? Like what won them the ire of Emu?
I mean, I think anybody that just sided with Nika or anything like that. I saw someone suggest, what if they built the Noah? And I was like, that's kind of interesting. I don't have any big takes for the Buccaneers because I feel like I need more context. I have nothing other than Kuma is one. They have half giant blood, right? So, I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, you could say that anybody who's like super tall in One Piece that isn't a giant has to have like Buccaneer blood now, like Whitebeard, Lin. It's
tough. It's like the clone situation. It's like how do you pinpoint who's what? For me, the only one that I'm sus on is Big Mom, just because she's so unnaturally powerful and large. But the rest I'm willing to believe they're just strong. But in terms of Buccaneers, I have an idea you might like. But I think that the Buccaneers, the great crime that the Buccaneers committed was they're the ones who started piracy as we know it in the modern age.
Well, so I mean, that you're tying into real world Buccaneers. Okay.
Tying into So the reason I'm thinking that is because we have real world pirate comparisons. Obviously, the pirates in the story now are like Golden Age Caribbean era pirates from our real world. A lot of references to that. And then you have the giants who are Nordic Viking themed, who are like the OG pirates from our world, right? Like they were doing high seas piracy for centuries and centuries before we ever had Blackbeard and Captain Kidd and all these people in the Caribbean doing their thing. So we have this race called the Buccaneers, who are they have giants' blood, but they're not quite giants and they're not quite people. Or humans rather. They're people, but they're not quite like the average person, and they're not quite giants. So they're a halfway point almost. So the way I see it is like, okay, in our real world we have these kind of ancient pirates in the form of Vikings. We have these modern pirates in the form of like, standard golden age pirates, and then you have the Buccaneers, who even in our own history were at this weird in-between stage, because they came around before we had the standard pirates we think of, the swashbucklers. The Buccaneers were more of a ragtag group of guys that all banded together because they were being oppressed by initially by the Spanish government was persecuting them. So they created a crew to defend themselves from the Spanish, and what they ultimately ended up doing was they ended up being hired as a defense force for various islands around the Caribbean. They were actually seen as heroes because they would go from island to island. They'd be hired to barricade and protect the island from invading European armies or navies. So the Buccaneers were actually viewed. They were like good warlords. They were like good privateers. But they were like almost a mix between pirates and privateers because they weren't quite either one. I don't know if you did some looking into this, but like interesting thing about the name Buccaneers comes from the practice of using buckens, which were these wooden frames that they would smoke meat on, and their whole deal was making money off of hunting and selling meat. So their whole thing.
So
they
kept Nika fed.
That
was a great. This all ties back to meat. This is they're just the meat boys.
They ate only meat. Another really interesting detail.
They kept his stamina up. They couldn't beat Nika because they had all these Buccaneers cooking up some meat for him, so he just had unlimited stamina.
I mean, if Buccaneers comes from as a name references meat, and Nika might reference Niku. There you go. There's another thing to go off.
But then the one Buccaneer has the Niku.
Boom. There you go. So no, but like also go look. Think about this. You have in One Piece this race of people that their name is a direct reference to like an occupation related to piracy. And in real life, the Buccaneers ate exclusively meat. And what did they drink? What was their alcohol of choice? Buccaneers were around before the sugar trade blew up, so rum was not a thing at the time, or not. It wasn't not a thing, but it wasn't the drink that pirates would be drinking at the time. So Buccaneers drank predominantly wine. They would drink nothing but wine. And in One Piece, pirates don't exchange rum; they exchange rice wine. Weirdly enough, so it's interesting to me if the practice of the sake exchange, sake, and the meat-eating tendencies of characters like Luffy and Roger, and it would be interesting to me if that all tied back into the Buccaneers as a people. And
Binks was a Buccaneer.
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly now. And it's like, okay, we have these guys called the Buccaneers. They started what we now refer to as piracy. Maybe they started piracy in response to the world government trying to exterminate them, and that's where it even started potentially, and it would tie into the real world equivalent. So it's just interesting to me how they're being overtly referenced in their namesake. It wasn't like Oda made up some name. It was like, these are the Buccaneers. Like, why would he choose that name of all names, right?
So if Nika was, say, like a pirate, or just had a group of people in the Void Century, and they were legitimately made up of just a bunch of different races, like Lunarians and Buccaneers, and then it's like just an extreme sins of the father thing where it's just like, okay, a Buccaneer and a Lunarian helped this guy, so eliminate their entire bloodline.
I'm willing to believe that. I'm willing to believe that. I think there might be more.
Not sold completely on that, but I mean, we're just spitballing.
Yeah, so I feel like the crime of helping Joy Boy makes sense for a reason to exterminate them, because we kind of had that with like shades of that with Tom helping build Roger's ship. Like, it's just like a guilty by association thing that they like to do as the world government. But I always just, like, ever since this came out, I've been thinking of this idea where maybe each of the major races in the One Piece world that have been attacked by the world government or oppressed by them all contributed a different part to the story of Joy Boy. So it wasn't that they were all maybe part of his crew, but it could be that, for example, the people of Wano were the ones who made the poneglyphs. The Buccaneers were the ones who started piracy as an act, like the riding around on boats and doing all that. And the Lunarians, as I've believed for a while, are responsible for the creation of the devil fruits. So all these elements that are now like commonplace in the world today, we've kind of accepted them as a matter of fact. These are all elements that also fly in the face of the world government's control. They have a lot harder of a time keeping control over things because devil fruits are a thing, because people with devil fruit powers can challenge them, because the poneglyphs exist, because pirates are on the seas, you know, flying flags against them. So all these various little concepts and ideas that oppose the world government may have all had their sources in the various people that helped Joy Boy all those years ago. So I think that like that also maybe connects to Alabasta too, with the spreading of the poneglyphs all over the world. Like each of these people played an individual part in the greater, or an individual piece, you could say, in the greater history, where it's like they weren't all just crewmates and friends, but maybe they all had their own jobs that they were like doing in the effort to fight against the world government, right? So that's kind of how I see it. Like I just see like the Wanawites, they're on poneglyph duty. You know, the people of Water 7, they're on like the shipbuilding duty, or maybe that was the Fishmen, you know, with the Noah and all that stuff. It could have been that you know, in that respect, maybe the Buccaneers were responsible for something like you know, creating the flags, creating the Jolly Rogers themselves. Maybe Jolly Roger as a practice came from Buccaneers. Yeah, so things like that. It's a leap because we don't have that much on them, but I'm just trying to make these connections based on the fact that Oda explicitly chose to name them Buccaneers. You know?
I like the idea of them, like, if they were inspired by Nika, right? And Nika is killed during the Void Century. But then the Buccaneers, in honor of Nika, decide that as a race, as a group of people, they're going to stand against the world government in Nika's name, and then they start their own Great Pirate Era, their own piracy era, where they all kind of go around and do that. And then it's like, the reason why we have so many tall people in One Piece is because they were just out mixing blood with so many different people. So it's actually, it's so diluted now. But
yeah, I mean, Big Mom kind of wanted to do that. Yeah. Like with Loki and Lola, like that might have been her intention, was to create a Buccaneer. Ooh. And right, so because she was missing 3 races, she's missing the Giants, the Lunarians, and one other unknown one. Now Buccaneers. We have that unknown. Yeah. So it's definitely Buccaneers. So maybe her goal with Lola and Loki was to make a Buccaneer. Right, so
I love that.
It could be that was an actual thing that happened on a wider scale back in the day. So,
which Pound is like a weird looking dude in the first place. Right? It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think he just has some weird genetics. In his case, it's just like that needs to be studied in a lab. I don't know what's going on with Pound. Like he has the secret to gigantification. If anything, that dude's head is massive.
Yeah. Keep the chat warm for me for a minute.
Yeah, sure thing. All right, what's going on up here, guys? Let's see. Will of Dreams said Norse creation myth, man made from ash tree, Adam and elm, or Eve tree woman. Interesting. I need to look more into the Norse creation myth. I actually haven't looked too much. I know about the world tree and all that stuff. That's interesting. I have to look into that ash tree, huh? Man, Oda out here naming characters Pound and Clap. Look, man, if I was writing a story and had to come up with the names for like 1,000+ characters, at some point you're just gonna fall into the territory of picking the names of like verbs or nouns. Like, okay, I'm gonna just name this character Brush. I'm just gonna name this character Napkin. Like at some point you just run out of cool names, you know what I'm saying? So I cut him some slack there. I know that if I was writing a story, eventually I'm just gonna start resorting to names like that too. Brush Dizabek Rocks. Yep. I mean, he's been doing it from the beginning, kind of. Meet my OP twins, Pot and Pen. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we get characters named Pot and Pan sometime down the road too. Mark Creasy asked, Hidden, you got any hot takes on One Piece? I do. I have one hot take. You guys aren't going to agree with this. This is more of a power scaling one. But unironically, I think that Magellan can scrap with maybe someone that's close to Admiral. I would say Magellan might be close to Admiral level. I know people will fight me on that, but I think the Venom powers are actually insane. And I don't think there's any direct counters to that as far as I've seen from other Devil Fruits. But yeah, so I'm a big Magellan stan, so I'll hype him up. That's my big like hot take. A lot of people disagree with me on that. I think Magellan's stronger than people think.
I say that all the time. I feel like he's the strongest person Luffy's ever gone up against.
Yeah, easily one of them. Like I was saying before, I put him on like the Admiral, almost Admiral level. Like I think if he wasn't Warden of Impel Down, like he could have easily found himself in a high seat in the Marines. Like, you know, especially with a power like that, man, that's insane.
He wiped out the entire Blackbeard pirates in one hit.
Yeah, like insane.
No one's done a feat like that. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm not a power scaler, but like he'll always be in my top 5. Like
same. I love Magellan. If you don't mind, I'm gonna pass off the chat to you just for a couple minutes. I have to let my dog out. Kind of scratching pawing at the carpet right now, so give me a second.
Gotcha. Let's see. Terrible TJ said those factions playing their parts would be like the Straw Hats playing their roles to make Luffy king of the pirates. Like the stream at Hidden. Sorry, that one was for Hidden. I do like the parallels. Partha said, appreciate the super chat, said, it doesn't make sense to me that Buccaneers are purely giant and human hybrids. Extincting them would mean killing every giant or every human. Maybe they're the evolutionary stepping stone, how fishmen are between humans and fish. That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not exactly a thing where it's just a human and a giant together will make a Buccaneer, but it's an evolutionary stepping stone, like fishmen. That's...
Yeah, I caught the end of that. Is he saying that it's like you don't just put a giant and a human together and get a Buccaneer?
Yeah.
It's kind of like slow. I mean, I've always been interested in how the giants came from the ancient giants potentially. Like it might be there's a line of evolution where it's like maybe in the primordial, or not primordial, but like ancient world, it was ancient giants, and then over time the ancient giants became giants, the giants became Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers became humans. Maybe, but I don't know. It's hard to fit everything in, like in the timeline.
Third Eye Guy, Michael Lacoste, note to add Pound and Clap are the only names of characters whose only role in the story is being a father. Yeah.
I think, I don't know if he's making a joke with that. That kind of seems like, just someone was talking about the names earlier, like imagine being named like Pound or Clap, like, oh, to just handing out names like verbs and like.
I don't know. This man named him Clap and then clapped him.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for, I was saying earlier, I'm waiting for a character named Brush. I was like picking objects off my desk. I'm like, yeah. Because, you know, once you name enough characters, after a certain point, you kind of run out of cool stuff to call people. You got to pick names like rocks, you know?
Well, I mean, there's 3 people in the story named Kaku, and there are 3 people in the story named Tama. Well, one of them is an animal. But
there's 2 Surus.
There's 2 Surus, yep. So it's he's running out of names, guys. Maxo said, Kuma, we'll name her ... slap. Vegapunk Kuma. So one of my I want to talk more about people that could be at God Valley.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Like interesting things here. Like one of the most interesting ones to me, whether it happens or not, and that's the whole thing. Like people are just, you know, like they get on theories and they're just like, you're just naming things and all that. It's like, no. We're finding ways to actually like make this stuff make sense in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So Dr. Hero, look, he spent a lot of time in the West. This is what this is told to us. Okay, so he calls Drum Kingdom his homeland, but the sakura trees that he found were in the West. Now, that's not to say that they're going to be here on God Valley, but it means that he was in the West Blue active as a thief/pirate.
Okay.
So when his Vivre card came out, it was initially printed that he was from the West Blue. And then it was reprinted to say Grand Line. Almost like Oda was like, no, don't give that away. Let's not get into that.
Okay.
So that's not to say that I think Hirolook was a member of Rocks or anything like that. I don't. What I would love is if this is like just a heist thing, where you have a scenario where Roger is either already on God Valley or is coming to God Valley because he knows that this game is going on and he just wants all of the loot. Which would then paint Roger as like a, do we like Roger kind of thing? And if we have Rocks coming in like, no, I'm stopping these slaves, it's like, wait, hold on, who are we supposed to be rooting for here? And then it's like, Roger has that growth because of this event, because he doesn't start looking for the One Piece and all that stuff until after this. So it's definitely a situation where Roger is the bad guy here, and it's like Garp and Roger both learn something here that changes them. But if Hirolook knows about the score, and he's there as an independent agent, and he just shows up because he wants to just steal things, and we just kind of see him in the background and acting through all of this. But then because of the incident, he gets caught up, and I actually don't think that Hirolook is like a powerful guy. No, I think he's just a sneaky, sly, clever dude. But if he sits there and he's watching these top tiers go at it, then it inspires him to like create his Jolly Roger, to like think of pirates as like this great thing. And then maybe he tries to be a pirate and he fails, and that's why he goes home. And he's just like, and he's like, when he's talking to Chopper, he's the guy who couldn't do it. It's like, I fly this flag against all diseases because I wasn't good enough to be a pirate, but you can. But let me tell you about all the great pirates that I saw. They have voices that tear the sky asunder. They have this, they have this, they have this, because I saw it in person.
Oh man, I would love that.
Go out to sea one day, Chopper, because you're going to see this stuff. And Hirolook would have been 30 years old.
So, I mean, if a young Hirolook shows up on the page, I think that would be the biggest curveball in terms of like appearances in God Valley, because I think the people have forgotten like that Hirolook even had a past of like, traveling, admiring pirates, things like that. And there's never really been we've never had a character like mention him like he was on their crew or anything like that. So I would love for a way to tie that in where he was present for something that involved great pirates. Because if he's talking about these stories, you'd imagine he didn't just hear them from someone at a bar. He must have seen some of it himself. I would love to get that insight there. I'd even be willing to believe, just because of the weird haircut, that he has some tie to Clover in his adventures.
Tie to Clover. I also, not that everybody needs to be there, but what if Kureha was like the doctor of the Rocks Pirates? And we get like a scene between Kureha and Hirolook because they're both from the same homeland or something like that, and then it like informs their relationship later on. I've said the Kureha thing before, because it was like I'm less inclined to thinking of it in these terms now, but before we had any more context on God Valley, before we had any context on Big Mom being sort of this like mother figure to Kaido in the first place, I thought maybe Kureha could have been there, was the mother figure for Kaido, and then that would color why she was so reluctant to take in Chopper, this other beast type figure, as like a son, because she already went down that road and then saw what that did. So it's like it's not just throwing just different things at the wall. It's what can make these characters better, what can make this world richer. It's like, what if Dedan is there, right? Garp saves her, and then this is how like she owes him a favor that he cashes in 16 years later, where it's like, you need to raise this kid now, and then 8 years after that or whatever, you need to raise this kid too. And it's like, and that's why she like falls in line with Garp, because it's like, well, I'm only alive because of you. I'm not a slave anymore because of you, whatever it is. She's hiding in the woods because of that.
When you have a character as old as Kureha and she has privileged knowledge, like clearly she knows something about what the D means or what it's,
and she's seen or been an acquaintance of Roger because she knew, you know. So it's like we need to see her doing something at some point.
It's not like we've met a lot of like old characters or characters that have ties to like the past and past events. But not many of them have ties directly to Roger. Not many of them are talking about the D. They're not talking about Gold Roger. They're not talking about any of that. So when we see that in the story, that's like a big alarm. It's like, okay, this character has been a part of something that is important and that we're gonna have to learn about later. I feel like Kureha does fall into that, and by extension, yeah, I mean Hero Luke would make sense, right? Because they clearly have a connection to each other.
Kureha would have been 103.
Yeah. Jesus.
Hero Luke would have been 30. Dadan would have been 17. I mean, like, I don't expect Dadan, but I mean, like, I need something to buy why, like, she just does whatever Garp says. Garp would have been 40. Dragon would have been 17. Sakazuki 17. Sengoku would have been also 40, but I don't think he has anything to do with God Valley. I don't think he was there. Kizaru would have been 20. But, you know, and going back to the Sakazuki of it all, I was getting a lot of comments after I said everything about Akainu, where I guess at some point it was revealed that Akainu didn't join the Marines until he was 23. And a lot of people were, like, commenting that. I hate that. Because it makes so much sense if he, to do it this way. I don't know. I'm hoping that that's something that Oda ends up retconning.
Oda's retconned stuff like that before, so to make things fit. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was just like written or thought up before he had the full plan or scope of how things were going to play out, or at least the time frame. Because you know, when you're writing the story, you might plan for events like God Valley to happen, but you might not have planned specifically the year in which it happened relative to everything else. So you might have to change some numbers around to make it work. But
he had tattered clothes as a kid, so it's like. Was he involved in one of these games already anyway? Let's see. Ivankov is 15. Going back to the 8 years old of it all, Kuma is like 8 or 9 during this.
Do you have Kong on there?
Yeah, I have Kong on my list. We don't know how old he is. Oda never gave us that age, but I mean, if we're ever going to see him do something, now's the time.
He would have presumably been the fleet admiral at this point. Yeah. So.
Brand new would have been 18, you know, if he was a rookie as well. Kuzan would have been 11, so he has nothing to do with this at all, which makes Ohara better because it's the first time he's seeing something like that.
Yeah.
And it gets a better reaction from Sakazuki, especially if Sakazuki was there. Blackbeard's 2, Shanks and Buggy are 1 year old. Shaki would have been 26. Zeph would have been 29 years old this time.
Okay.
Chin Zhao is from the West Blue. And would have been 40.
Okay.
Would have been 40 years old. Clover would have been 67 from the West Blue. One of the fun ones that I brought up is if Big News Morgans was here. He would have been 15 years old. And, like, you know, it's like, all we need is we don't need to spend a lot of time with him, but we just see something where, like, he's just affected by all of this, or, like, the way the news is getting spun, and it's like, this is what makes him decide he's going to start a news agency.
It could be pre-Devil Fruit, too, so, like, we
won't even know it's him until later.
Yeah, like,
exactly.
Like, that would be sick. I would love that.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it, like, do you think we might see some of the other Gorozei here, or do you think it's just going to be Saturn?
I think it's just going to be Saturn. I think the whole idea is to platform Saturn and to get the emotion out of what's going to happen between Saturn and Kuma, especially if it's a situation where Saturn kills Kuma, Dragon kills Saturn, something like that. But I mean, I don't know how it's all going to end up, if Saturn walks away from this or not. It feels like Saturn should be the Bluno that Luffy takes out, but
they all have their like warrior god subtitles, like their job description or whatever. So I wonder if like the games or what, like that falls under Saturn's, resume. Like that's what he's
science and defense.
That's I wonder how that, maybe they brand unaffiliated nations as like this is part of our defense. Like we have to defend ourselves.
Oh, well, they're there for the resources, so maybe the resources tie into what he needs for experiments. So that actually, so it's not just, so yeah. So I could buy that. I really, since he is the science godhead and all that, I mean, I would prefer that Saturn was, Sanji or Frankie's opponent, but that's also why I kind of like that the two of them are, involved in this interaction anyway. We have all of the right players for this.
Yeah.
Oda, manipulated the story to put the right people here at the right time. I was wondering if this was going to be like Sanji's nothing happened moment, but the more and more I think about it, I think Kuma's just going to swoop in and save everybody.
Yeah, I don't really see any way that the Kuma plotline resolves without him coming to Egghead and saving everybody, because we already saw that the Straw Hats do all make it out okay. But obviously Kuma's not with them, and we don't know where Kuma's going right now, but we can only guess. There's only so many places Kuma could want to go at this moment. So
the only thing that makes sense in the story is this. So, and I like the idea for the logic of it all, was that his power can't go through the red line, so he had to climb the red line to get to Egghead in the New World. And then while he was there, he was just like, let me just mess some shit up.
Do you think this is an idea I've been playing a lot with? I know it's probably a common idea, but Ginny, the character that was revealed at the end of the last chapter.
I was actually just going to bring Ginny up.
Oh, really? Cool. Let's talk about that, because I have a whole idea that Oda's. I think I know what Oda's doing with this character, but I'm pretty confident.
Go ahead. Cool.
I think Bonnie's her clone, and I think that Kuma, despite the fact the whole cloning thing, right? It's a little bit overdone. Anyone could be a clone, right? But if anyone's going to be a clone in the Egghead arc, the arc that introduced the concept, it would make sense if the central character with Bonnie was tied into this cloning plotline. And now we have this character that shares some personality traits with Bonnie, probably physical traits too. I'm assuming the hair is pink and all that. So if it turns out that Bonnie was a clone of Ginny, and Kuma chose to raise Bonnie as his daughter and hide and shelter her from the fact that she was a clone of someone, so that she would go her whole life believing that she had a father instead of being a childless clone, or a parentless clone rather. I think it would make a lot of sense why Vegapunk didn't want Bonnie to put her hands in that bubble, because what Bonnie saw when she stuck her hands in was Kuma's slave past. We never saw what the rest of that flashback was that she saw, but I can only assume what we are seeing now is what Bonnie saw in that bubble. So if it turns out that at the end of that flashback, or at some point in Kuma's memories, it's revealed that Bonnie isn't actually Kuma's daughter, I think it would add so much more weight to what immediately follows that. Because then Bonnie, after learning the truth about herself, would attack Saturn and still, despite knowing the truth, say, "You killed my father." Like, accepting, like, okay, I'm a clone of this Ginny person. But regardless, Kuma's my dad. I don't care. I don't care about any of that. He's my dad. He took care of me. He loved me. He raised me. And still says, "You killed my father," and attacks Saturn. Saturn's immediate response to that, when she said, "You killed my father," he goes, "Oh, you mean Kuma?" As in, like, it took him a second to register who she meant by father, because in his mind, he might be like, "You're just a clone. You don't have a father." But then he had to take a second and was like, "Oh, you mean Kuma? Oh, yeah, your dad." Right? So I have a feeling that what the truth is that's been hidden is that Bonnie is the only other clone in this arc, and that she's a clone of this big character Ginny, who we're gonna come to know in this flashback, and that she might have been maybe one of the big motivators for getting Ivankov and Kuma to join the Revolutionaries was that she was killed during these games.
That's the one part that I agree with. I think that Ginny is, a lot of people are like, oh, it's Bonnie's mom, Luffy's mom, whatever. Now Bonnie's clone. Ginny is the character that we're supposed to get attached to during this flashback, and then she's gonna die. She's gonna get killed probably by Figure Linden, and that's but she'll have significant interactions with Kuma, Ivankov, and probably Dragon, and then when she dies, it'll be like a big part of starting the Freedom Fighters. And to that point, when you look at the image of Bonnie as a child, she doesn't really look like Ginny to me. Now, my thinking is there are similar aspects to your line of thinking. I just remove the Ginny part of it at all. Also because there's a lot of years in between. I believe that Bonnie is as old as the Viva card says. I believe she's 20, 22, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing for me with Bonnie is I think that yes, she did die. And I think that she is a clone. And also, not that everybody needs to be a clone, but it makes sense for Bonnie. And it also makes sense because we would have one less interaction in the story where a biological parent is a good dad. And, other outside of Kyros, Oda doesn't really like doing that. So this would be no, but I'm joking. But I think that his real daughter died, his real Bonnie, and she was Bonnie. Ginny has nothing to do with any of this, but his real daughter died, and he went to Vegapunk after removing her memories with his power and holding them, asked Vegapunk to create a clone of his daughter, and then put the memories in, and then now we have a Bonnie. But then, to that effect, if it was a clone that aged naturally from that age, then maybe it could be a Ginny situation, because she could have been... Because then the timeline actually isn't that bad. No. It would just be a daughter that would have been just born earlier. That's all. I don't want any more Ginny. I want Ginny to just die. But the main thing is that she's having an internal crisis of realizing by looking in the memories that yes, she is not the original daughter. And if she was an accelerated clone, like the Seraphim and the Pacifistas, or even the ones that Judge had, right, that mature in 5 years, then that lines up with everybody calling her a little girl and all this stuff. Like, she's like, physically, because she was born in a tube, not is a little girl, but she's not mentally a little girl because she's got the memories from someone who actually did live a longer life.
It's the people in the know that seem to refer to her that way too. Like the Gorozei, like people that would know the truth tend to refer to her as a little girl, whereas people otherwise just kind of treat her like anyone else. So it's like, it's weird to me she's getting this specific type of like treatment from certain characters that seem like they would know the truth. And it also, like,
I think it ties back into Kuma, though. It's like, I think that the reason that Kuma did this operation, that he, it did all of this stuff, is like, the one stipulation is you cannot kill the clone of my daughter. You cannot kill my daughter. So that's why Akainu, like, doesn't kill her. This is why, he brings her back, because it's like, it's part of the programming or whatever, and they need to keep operating on Kuma for whatever reason. So
Yeah, I mean the Akainu point is definitely interesting. Like, what exactly happened there? Like, why did he let Bonnie go? Um, I mean that I don't totally have an answer for myself, but for me, it's just like the theming of it being like, okay, maybe at God Valley, like this is how I've just kind of put it together, and I do agree with what you're saying. Also, like it could just work without it even being like a clone of Jenny. It might have been Kuma's daughter that died here, and then he tried to clone his own daughter. But the way I feel like it might have played out, just me though. You have Jenny at God Valley. Something happens where Jenny dies at God Valley, and or maybe shortly after, Kuma ends up getting his powers over the at some point during these events. He gets his devil fruit. He might have used this devil fruit to take the memories of Jenny, like you suggested, keep them
For years.
and
Wow.
for years, hold on to them for years, and then he becomes a scientist and approaches Vegapunk with the idea of cloning to bring someone back from the dead, essentially, someone he really cared about. It's like, okay, he's talking about the one doctor. He's like, hey, there's this one doctor that figured out that a soul weighs this many grams or whatever. So he's obviously been looking into and researching the concept of like souls and bringing someone back from the dead almost. And it's funny because Kuma gets introduced in Thriller Bark, arc full of zombies, people coming back from the dead. So you have Kuma, who's like, okay.
Well, he wasn't introduced then, but he played a major role. Yeah.
Like formally, like
yeah.
brought to the audience in a
I do like the connection though.
Yeah, so like he's like caring about all this resurrection sort of thing. So maybe he does end up successfully producing a clone of Ginny, but then realizes what he's done and created a whole new life and pretty much doomed them to the life of a clone. And he decided, you know what, I'm not going to it's selfish of me to raise this person as Ginny. I'm going to give them a new name. I'm naming this child Bonnie, and I'm going to raise her as my daughter.
But then wouldn't she have Ginny's memories?
Well, I don't know but the point is that he didn't create her from just the memory. I think the memories were just like used for the cloning. I'm not exactly sure, obviously, on that aspect, but the way I see it is like he kept something from Ginny and used whatever he kept from her with his powers to make the clones. And Bonnie, maybe it's something about the cloning process. They don't retain all the memories of their past life. They just retain the personality. Kind of like how Devil Fruits, Luffy has, when he goes Gear 5, he has like the laughing kind of personality of Nika, but it's not like he has all of Nika's memories coming back to him in the instant he goes Gear 5. It's just kind of like the personality or the inner spirit of that person kind of comes through. And maybe that's what's happening with Bonnie, where it's like the inner, like what made Ginny is coming through with Bonnie, but Bonnie's still her own person. And that's why Kuma chose to raise her as her own person and treat her as his daughter. And she grew up thinking her whole life that Kuma was her real father. And that's where the tragedy comes in when she learns the truth. And that's why Vegapunk was so adamant about keeping her from the bubble, because he knows too. He knows the truth about Bonnie. And he's like, I don't want you to see that.
I like the idea of, it being more than we think, but at the same time, I really just get the impression that this is just a red herring. Sure. And it's like, he wants everybody to look at the fact that she's chomping down on some meat that like, oh, it's either Luffy's mom or Bonnie's mom or something like this. But I think she's just the emotional death of these characters' past. It's like it's the the Sabo situation. If he had died, it's Belmir, it's Hiraluk, it's it's Corazon. Now this is just Ginny.
Yeah, that would be in line with his like past writings. So like I'm very open to that possibility also. I'm just trying to see how for me the cloning plotline has to play a heavy part in the main theme of the arc, like I just think like how it plays out is going to be very connected to how it was set up. And a large part of the setup for Egghead was Kuma, Vegapunk, Bonnie, Island of Technology, cloning, concepts like that. And now we have it getting tied into God Valley. So I've just been trying to find the thread that links it all together, but certainly what you're saying is also viable. Like that could be the case.
If it's going to echo into what we have now, I think it would be interesting if, Kizaru played a role in this as well. He would have been 20 years old. People have also told me that he wasn't apparently a member of the Marines by this point, but it's like, why wouldn't he have been? I don't know where, I don't know. Is this in the Viva cards or something? I need to go and look at this stuff. But, it's like if Kizaru and Saturn had interactions during this that echoed the interactions that they have now in the present, then we're getting like a full circle story where everything is kind of looping together, and then it makes sense why we're getting this flashback while we're getting all of this stuff that's happening. And the Egghead incident becomes a reaction to the God Valley incident. Culmination of everything that we see here informs what we get at the end of this. It's like, this thing happened, and then now, because of all of these things happening, whatever Saturn did then, everything like that ties back in, and then now the repercussions of that day come back, either by way of Dragon, Kuma, whatever. But, and it's actually going to be really interesting now that I just said that, like, if Kuma versus Saturn, because then it's Kuma versus Kumo.
What if Ginny attacked Saturn at God Valley the same way Bonnie did, and that's how Ginny died?
That's kind of fun.
And then Kuma pulls in to save Bonnie in the present, last second, to do what he couldn't do all those years ago.
That's fun. I'd actually like it if he wasn't in his spider form, though, like his Ushioni form. Like if it was just like regular Saturn, but then you took her out. But the other thing too is that I want to see play a role here is in the Ushioni lore. The Ushioni is able to spread an incurable disease. Like if you're either touched by it, it has like a poison, right? So, and now I'm actually making further connections here. If Ginny dies from this poison, right, and then this is an echo to Ivankov healing Luffy from poison, because Ivankov either didn't have the power yet or didn't know that their power could do that. It's very possible that in one of those chests is the hormone fruit, is the Niku Niku. Niku Niku is almost like a really safe bet. But if we get other characters like Moria and Crocodile, the Kage Kage could be there, the Suna Suna. But I like the idea of Ginny dying from some sort of an incurable disease and Ivankov not being able to fix it. Yeah. That's cool. And speaking of incurable diseases, like if Hiraluk is there, and then this is how he gets his disease.
That's true, yeah.
And then
from Saturn.
Saturn. Yeah.
Huh. It's funny, we were talking about the white lead disease earlier too. Like that could be an Ushioni thing, for all we know. Like there's it brings a lot of like the incurable diseases into perspective. I wonder if we're gonna see some of that come up here. But I want to know. I mean, what do you think about Saturn's powers? Do you think they're devil fruits? Do you think the Gorozei are using devil fruit powers? Do you think they're like the OG creatures that the devil fruits are made from in the first place?
There's arguments for both sides. It's not. I'm not going to pick a side because it really could go either way. I like it if it's devil fruits, and I like it if it's not. We've seen enough weird stuff in One Piece, especially during Wano, that ties into folklores. That's just like, this is the story we're in. So I buy it. If there were at one point these mythical beings, these gods, these devils, and all this stuff, and that's the way the world was, and then the Void History is just the age of turning the world into no gods anymore and just demons and mortal men, and the whole point of the Void History is to make sure that the mortal men don't realize that they can imagine themselves and will themselves into becoming gods that could topple them. So it's
I like that idea, especially because it would give a much simpler explanation for all the awful stuff that's happened. because of the world government. It's like it's a lot easier to rationalize that they're just bloodthirsty demons or something than for them being like actual normal people who just have really warped morals. Because there's some of the things that the world government does where it's like, I can't imagine, you know, it's already hard enough to find one person with such corrupted morals that they would greenlight this sort of thing, but to have an entire city full of people that bad and that evil, I mean, that's crazy. Like that's insane. So like there has to be, it can't just be that they all have really big egos and they all think that they're gods so that they can just do all this awful stuff. To me, it would be a simpler explanation that, hey, maybe the guys at the very top are just straight up like actual monsters who feed off of this sort of thing. And it's like they've just kind of convinced the rest of the world that this is the norm. And I'd be willing to accept that. Yeah. So I like the idea. I mean, they seem ageless. Saturn does not seem to have aged a year since God Valley.
And this is the first time that we're seeing any of the Gorozei
yes,
without a silhouette in the past, signifying, like even recently in the cover story with Vegapunk, he silhouetted the Gorozei to hide the fact that they're ageless. So,
yes.
But I mean that is a theory that is as old as they are. You know, just...
Yeah, Shepard. What's the name? Shepard Jupiter. That guy got the lucky draw because he kept a pretty youthful appearance. Yeah, he's the only one that looks like he's like a relatively like young, like middle age. Like, you know, the other guys are just like, if they got their ages frozen at some point, it happened when they were like 130, like each of them. This is like the one guy that got like a good deal, I think, with the eternal youth. The rest of them use walking canes and stuff still, so I don't know, you know. It's like maybe that's just part of the disguise.
Well, I think the for Saturn it makes sense, because the walking cane fills it out so that he actually has 8 legs when you count the cane.
I did not realize that. That's actually pretty brilliant.
Yeah, because he's got 2 arms, he's got 5 spider legs, and then he has the cane.
Where's the 5th one? How's that work? Well, that sounds an awful question out of context, but where's how do the 5 spider? Is it like 2 on each side and then 1 in the back? I don't even remember off the top of my head. I never put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. You just have to see it.
Yeah, yeah, with the arms and then the cane, and then that's actually a little. That's like low key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, but.
Yeah, man. I think. Let's see, we're 2.5 in. I think.
Yeah.
We'll probably start winding down.
We could. I do have to be out of here by 3:30, so you know, anytime in between now and then, I'm good to go. So.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I say the next 10 minutes or so.
Sure. All right.
Is there anything else that like you've been cooking that you want to share, man?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about Garling. I've been thinking about, just the context of like if Shanks actually is Garling's child. You know,
they certainly look the same.
They look the same. It would recontextualize the beginning of the story with a celestial dragon, like someone with noble blood, helping Luffy, like the enemy, you know, someone of the D clan, an enemy of the gods. So like, I always like the idea of Shanks being related to someone that would be a villain for Luffy, but Shanks is like turning that on its head. It's like your blood does not determine who you are, who you become. So Shanks is the like shining example of that. Like, hey, I might be related to the celestial dragons, or in this case Garling, an awful person, but that doesn't mean I have to be that way. And the reason Shanks is this way is because he was raised by a pirate. He was raised by Roger. So it's like we have Roger raising a pirate raises a celestial dragon to become a pirate, and then that pirate goes on to raise up the person who would eventually take down the world government. I just think that's a beautiful like chain of events that happens there.
It's about the parents you choose.
Exactly, and that's like one of my favorite themes in the story, because like my favorite character is Whitebeard. It's come up time and time again with his crew, with Ace, with other characters. So like having that come in with Shanks too is just like perfect. And I wonder, based on how Garling reacted to Mjosgard, and he executed Miosgard and said anyone who associates with what was it, the quote, associates with trash is lower than trash themselves, or something like that. He basically views anyone that helps pirates or what he deems as scum as, they're no longer celestial dragons. So I wonder, his own child, if Shanks is his own child, does he hold the same opinion about Shanks? Right? Because Shanks seems to have an in with the Gorozei. He's able to waltz in there and have a conversation with them, and they're not taking him out. So it could be that that's because they're doing it out of respect to Garling. But
yes,
from what we know about Garling, I almost wonder if he would condemn Shanks the same way he would condemn Miosgard for being a pirate, for associating with commoners, for helping Luffy, for all these various things, for being a part of Roger's crew. I almost expect Garling...
That's why he would show up in a cloak in the first place, because he doesn't want to run into his dad.
Yeah. So I'm just curious about how that's going to play out, and if we're ever going to see both of them in the same room together in the modern age. Are we going to see adult Shanks and current Garling in a room? What is that conversation going to be like?
It's just going to be crazy to see Garling going after these people, because we already know that he wins this game. That's how he was introduced to us in 1084, or 1086. So
with a 10,000 point handicap.
With a 10,000 point handicap, he wins. So
yeah,
that is absurd.
Scary. Scary. Yeah,
Shanks' dad is about to be the most despicable character in this series.
I'm so ready for that, man. I just want someone that's so unabashedly evil that we can just be happy when they just go down, right? Because I feel like too often we're looking for ways to make some characters have a sympathetic motive for why they do what they do, and that's good most of the time for storytelling. But sometimes you just need someone that symbolizes everything wrong with the world in a way, and there's no noble reason for it. It's just
sometimes
evil.
Sometimes you just need people to be evil, and I say this. That's why I'm I don't want Akainu to be redeemed. I don't want Lucci to be redeemed, and I don't like some of the things that have been set up in this arc to kind of color him in a new way. I'm glad that he turned back against them and is having a fight against the Straw Hats now, because it's this guy should not be on our side.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that
Spandam
that needs
never redeem these people. It's not necessary. And people were a little upset when we got introduced to the Gods Knights, and it's just another faction and all this stuff. It's no, we need this. We need a faction of purely evil people, because there's so many people that by the time we get to the end of the story, they're going to be on our side. You think we're fighting Fujitora at the end of all of this? No.
No. That's the thing. When I first I was trying to put together the factions for the final war, who's going to be taking part in what. And this is a while ago. I did it was a video about the Revolutionaries potentially secretly working with Vegapunk to code the Seraphim in a way where the Seraphim could be turned against the Gorozei last second, and it would be a poetic Lunarians taking back their homeland situation in the form of the Seraphim doing it. And the most common rebuttal I got to that, which I think is understandable, was from people saying that would be too stacked. The world government would not be no matter how strong Emu is, if you have every faction, the Marines turn against the world government, pirates band together, Seraphim turn against them, how do they fight back against that? It's it's a layup for the good guys. So it's yeah, okay, that's a fair argument. That's a lot of factions against a handful of people. But now we have the God Knights being introduced, and I am very, very suspicious now that we're seeing Garling and the context around him. I have a feeling that all the God Knights are champions of their respective games. So it's not just Garling that was the champion of God Valley. Every single God Knight was a champion of a different island when those games happened there. So these are all really evil, terrible people, one after the other. There's not a single good guy among the God Knights. And they're all good fighters too, based on that past. So I am very, very ready for an even battle. From even with a fully stacked good guys side, I'm ready for the God Knights to be tearing up house. They're all going to be terrifying, and they're going to be irredeemable villains, so we don't have to waste time on any sad backstory on the, like, we know the context. Like, once you meet the God Knights and Oda gives us an establishing line where it's like, these are all the former champions. Okay, we have all the motive we need to fight these guys. We don't need to know anything about what happened on those islands. We just know these guys gotta go. Like, once we get that context,
yep,
that's
the perfect way to set it up, bro. I love that.
Yeah. So that's the last bit of sauce I got for today. I think I wanted to get to that because I always felt the God Knights were interesting. We just haven't had enough to work with lately. But this chapter kind of added some.
I'm so pumped to see where we go with all of this. And part of me is expecting Oda to, do a bait, and that's just the next. I think 1096 will be like really focused on telling us who Ginny is. So setting up like that death. So it's going to be like very Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny focused, and we may see some other players, but like I'm really worried that Oda is just going to track Kuma's life and not God Valley and save that for later on. But either way, he's given us enough context to kind of like go through a lot of different things here and who could be there. So needless to say, whether or not we actually do get the full God Valley flashback here, we got enough even in 1095 to have the discussion that we had today. The last super chat that we got in here was from Third Eye Guy, Michael Lacoste. He said the Opie surgery, but they have to find the fruit and train a new slave each time. So it takes that many more years for the next Gorozei to get the surgery. I've suggested that like the Opie no Mi was kind of just run through a bunch of slaves and the surgery has been performed over and over again, and that goes through my thing that it's not immortality, but that it's lifespan. So it's like whatever lifespan the user had is what they're able to bestow, and that just makes a lot more sense to me than immortality, especially since lifespan was a big factor in the series. And
it could be that all the carnage feeds that immortality, like in general, like that could be the reason they want to do these things, is because it keeps them immortal to a degree.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe the Opie no Mi is has something to do with this. Maybe Diaz Barrels is here and learns about it. He theoretically would have been a Marine at this time and probably would have been old enough. So if he learned about this, then when he becomes a pirate, like he's seeking after that because he knows it's important to the government. And there's a lot of there's some things here. And if Homing is here, and there's like connections to the Opie no Mi, and Doflamingo is 3, and he remembers some of this. There's ways to go down this. Shout out to my guy Mark Creasy, member for 25 months. He said, "Y'all emptied the clip today. Perfect stream. We still got ammo, man. We got ammo.
Yeah,
and we're gonna get more ammo this week. We're gonna be getting into way more this Sunday for 1096. Hidden. I'm gonna start wrapping things up, man. If you want to say what you'd like to say to the chat, promote anything that you've got out right now that you want everybody to check out.
Sure. Okay. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. This was a really, really fun stream. I made sure to block out a lot of time because I knew we were going to be cooking. Like, I was like, okay, we're just going back and forth with theories. So like, I blocked out the time. I was like, we got to do this. This is going to be awesome. So I'm glad. This was a great stream. So thank you for having me here. Thank you to everyone in chat. We got a lot of viewers in chat today, and I hope you all enjoyed
consistently.
Yeah.
We had about 500 people in here the whole time. So that was
beautiful. Yeah. So live cooking, guys. As for what I've been making right now, I'm currently working on a couple things. I've been trying to get this Wano critique out because now that the arc's done in both the anime and manga, I think it's a good time to give it a full look back. So I've been working my way through it little by little, and like taking notes. So I want to do a Wano critique. That's coming up. So anyone that's interested in that, definitely check it out. And as for subjects we discussed today, I mean, I mentioned the Akainu video. That's my newest one. If that part of the stream was something that seemed interesting to you, definitely check that video out, because I echoed a lot of the same ideas in there, and talk maybe more at length about the symbolic connections. So yeah, check that video out. Aside from that, yeah, I'm just happy to be here, man. So Randy, once again, great stream today, and I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited for this next chapter, because I think 1095 is the most excited I've been reading, and sad I've been reading a One Piece chapter in the last probably like year. So for me, this is like an exciting time.
Just seeing Ivankov is what sparked so much for me, because I was like, oh, if Ivankov is here, man, we can have a lot of people here. This is this is good. All right, guys. So spam the chat, drop some W's in for my man Hidden Island. Don't forget to like the stream by the end of it, and see everybody for 1096 this Sunday. Thanks so much for being here. This was a cook fest. We definitely got into oh yeah. Digging for ingredients, everything. Top shelf.
Taking some some of the vegetables off the plants here. Yeah, you know, a little bit of this, a little spice.
A little bit. Don't forget to wash your hands, dry them.
Yeah,
all that stuff. That's a big part of cooking. You gotta keep
also
everything
having a
clean
cigarette
as well.
in the mouth the entire time is a big part of cooking too. Just accidentally ashing in the bowl. Sanji, I'm sure, has accidentally done a couple times. Yeah.
The chemical X, said Barry.
Yeah, there you go.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. Thanks, everybody. Catch you later.
Thanks, guys.
I've been swimming deep, deep. Savage.